Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
Hello, how you doing? Welcome to the show. C.T. Muga is saying Sande Sana. He is basically thanking the Lord for this very wonderful morning.
Yes.
Sande,
yes. Sande Mingi. Thank you. Yes, and if I may speak for the Kenyanese, Nedegu.
Wow.
Yes, the diversity of the Kenyan language.
Ndio yo. Ndu Oko,
Yes.
how you doing?
I'm warm.
Are you? What did you eat last night?
Get out of here. I knew that was the next question. As the words were tumbling out of my mouth, I thought the next question is going to be.
So was it what? Pepper? What would make you wake up feeling warm?
Where?
Okay.
Where?
Tuachane hiyo story.
You want
in this room.
you now want to enter the realm of African proverbs.
I'm saying it's warm in this room.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what we understood.
Yeah, right.
Yes, room.
Oh, yeah, good morning. How una day?
The day is fine.
Una well done. No?
It's a warm morning.
How your yard? How your yard, City?
Yadi. Iko sawa.
They're fine. How your yard, Eric?
Yard. It's thick. You're
But
seriously actually feeling warm.
Yeah, I am.
You are sweating.
I don't understand what's going on.
You don't.
it actually is warm.
Yeah, isn't it?
The room, this particular room, this one we are in, is actually warm.
Well, for Ndu to be sweating, it not only is it warm, she's hot.
It's warm. Temperature gauge behind me here.
Inasema it's warm
It's
weather.
warm.
It's warm.
It's warm.
So we're gonna fix
But
it.
the good thing is we can control it. We can actually make it cooler
Control it a bit.
a bit.
Okay. Okay. It says 23. 23 is room temperature.
Whose room?
This one.
Whose room?
This
needs to
table
be
is
at 23?
cold.
Yeah, this discussion about the room must be expanded.
Okay. Good to see you guys.
Same here.
And welcome to the show, everybody. Today and tomorrow, we are looking at the Constitution. So tomorrow marks 10 years since the promulgation of Constitution of Kenya 2010. And this last couple of years, we've been discussing this Constitution and wondering whether it's time to start tweaking it a little bit. We've lived it, and therefore, there are those that feel that it's about time we started adjusting some things because of what CT would call lived experience. And then there are those that will argue, come on, we have not even implemented 80% of this constitution. And the 20% you haven't implemented are the ones that you want to change. Implement them first.
Actually, this is a genuinely broad discussion and a useful one. In fact, the breadth of it is what makes the discussions around it even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about choice, you will be spoiled for choice as to what to look at or what
Not to.
Yes, or what to discuss. Because in reality, the Constitution is visionary. In its intention, in its content, it's visionary. Now, this is when an idea clashes with reality. And you're right, lived experience. But now, when we think of changing it, we have to move to this other realm of the unlived experience.
Yeah.
Because the unlived experience is part of our expectation. And this expectation is what has been felt has not been achieved.
Yeah.
So that is what now forms this other part of the discussion. But, when you talk about change, you think of referendum. The legal instruments that bring about change.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's called, the one nice word that comes to my mind, amendment.
Amendments, eh? There are some amendments that this constitution says you shall not touch me unless everybody touches me.
Eric,
Referendum.
we're really into this African proverb things today.
Yes.
All right.
You had an impact on the life of Eric.
No,
One
no.
Eric Glasses.
Actually, no, the thing is, you see, every time he uses certain phrases and words, unfortunately, what springs to my mind is not what is current. What springs to my mind is the associative implications of what he's saying. It is, you will not touch me. It reminds me,
Unless all of you.
there was an establishment many, many years ago in the Kitengela area that very many prominent people like to go to. In those days, there was hardly any traffic on this road. The place was called Baby Touch Me.
No, it wasn't. What is that? No, it was not.
And in short, BTM.
No, it wasn't.
Eh,
No, it was not.
so
So what
the
is
signature
that?
tune for that place must have been that song. Baby, touch me.
Oh, but of course.
I love you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we'll discuss the Constitution today. We'll discuss the Constitution tomorrow as well. But let's discuss COVID-19 for now.
Okay.
So the numbers.
Right, the numbers, many things going on surrounding the numbers in Kenya. Are they rising? Are we on a decline? Have we actually hit the peak? And nobody really knew. Did the peak pass Kenya by? Are these numbers that are being given now a true reflection of the could-be lived experience of some people that COVID is leaving Kenya? Many things being thrown out there. 246 new COVID-19 cases, increasing the total to 32,803 out of 4,149 samples in the last 24 hours. This brings the total sample caseload to 429,000 that have been carried out in the country. Okay, so still under 500,000 cases having been done. That is just over.
Just forget it. If you're trying to do a percentage of the 47 million,
Yeah,
forget it.
Nani?
400.
It's
Yeah,
just-
it's just under 1% actually.
Just forget it.
It's under 2% of the entire population.
When you talk about the percentages, you will find that these percentages, if there's one thing the universe, the planet we live in, is in agreement or in tandem, is that one. The percentages are just about the same.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers and then you tweak it, and we now call it data, so you throw in something called percentages, around one.
Same.
Around one. Doesn't fly too far away from the one. And this is something we must also understand and probably tell our listeners that when you hear of these numbers, that's why we always throw in the population of that country.
Yeah.
So that you have an idea
Of what you're dealing with.
of the representative nature of the figure or the statistic that we've thrown out there.
Right, because if you look at a country like the United States, where there are just about 6 million cases, 5,955,728, you're looking at a population of 331,298,704. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at that, exactly, still around about 2-3% of the population having been affected. With 182,404 deaths in the country, still looking at, the closure of schools and the pullback on face-to-face education, especially now that the summer is over and children have gone back to school. However, making the decision to say, okay, schools will continue. However, we are not going to have face-to-face education. South Africa's numbers have risen 613,017. Excuse me. Looking at a total. Now, if we do a comparison between South Africa and Kenya, for example, as two powerhouses in Southern Africa and East Africa, respectively, South Africa has carried out 3,578,836 tests. Kenya,
Population of 50 million.
with a population of 59 million in South Africa. Okay? Kenya has carried out 429,000 tests, population of 47 million.
How many tests have we done?
429,000.
Less than 1%.
No, what's 21 plus 4?
21 plus 4 is 25 usually.
425,600 samples carried out in Kenya. Okay? Just,
We've
putting that
reached
out.
400.
Yeah.
We are at 429.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, you could say we are trying.
Small.
Small being the operative word here.
We did try small.
Okay.
No, our strategy is different.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Here we go.
We're not just going to do mass testing. We're going to do, what's the word?
Even the targeted testing you're talking about, they said they will do mass testing, change to targeted.
Not just targeted,
Hmm.
but data informed.
Okay. Which data is this that's informing people?
When we observe, we see some pockets, and now we go and test samples in those pockets.
Okay. All right. Okay. So this was the week, this week that we are in currently, the week of the 24th of August, is when some reagents were supposed to be coming into the country. And that's what we were told, that we would see an increase in testing when these reagents made their way. So maybe there's still some days. There's today, there's tomorrow, there's Friday.
Yeah, so they're arriving, they're clearing. So from next week.
Yeah, we'll see an increase in the
see.
samples being done.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. All right.
Now count that the results will take about 10 days.
So even this peak that they're saying,
Mid. The peak that we're talking about basically is in the infection rate. So out of these
so
samples,
right now,
what's 246 out of 4,149?
yeah.
What's the percentage of the positivity? So that's what we're using.
Okay. That's what's informing the decision.
Don't look at numbers and say, 246 is a low number. Okay, but out of the samples that have been tested, how many turned out positive? So if we go into this cluster and we find that 50% of the people that we've tested have turned out positive, then we can tell that we have a high infection in this area. But if we go to that same cluster and we find that we tested, it was 50, then it has dropped to 20, then it's dropped to 10, then it's showing that.
That's how it should normally be done, right? Okay. We understand. Don't worry. Everything is going to be all right. Yes, Bob Marley
will.
once said, Abi?
It will.
Okay.
Soon.
Let's look at Italy. 261,174 cases, what they're looking at. In the last 3 days, they've recorded 1,003, 1,026, and 1,047 cases, respectively. So there's a surge there. There's a spike there. After the summer months are over, and they were children were expected to go back to school next week, but the national government is being very cautious about this, and they're likely to make an announcement in the coming days that that's not going to happen because of what they're seeing, and the likelihood of then children spreading this, if they have it, is very, very high. And they're looking at, yes, like we said yesterday, what they're calling the second wave. Okay?
Are people still out
Yeah, it's summer.
gallivanting and making merry?
Yeah.
If you want
It's
to get
summer.
a clear picture of it, if you simply look at the dailies today and you look at the pictures that were taken at the funeral of one Mr. Mheshimiwa Mwahima, former MP for Likoni, and you look at the social distancing matter or applied to this situation and look at the numbers, then you could say that universally, and then you take a step back and look at a football match that we were told was in Tanzania, two very big teams playing, and look at the stadium. And then you juxtapose that with the pictures that you see of resorts in Europe and the crowding.
Yeah.
Then you take that and look at the motorbike rally that was taking place in Dakota in the US. My friend, you look at the numbers, the throng, and the proximity people have towards each other. You realize COVID.
We are scaring away COVID. This is how to deal with it.
Chase it away in large numbers. Drove.
This I hadn't heard of. Explain this to me,
It's the
please.
only thing that makes sense now. is
COVID
when they
looks at
told
you and wonders now, who do I go to?
Where do I go? So just leave
There are
everybody
too many
alone.
people.
But
So
you're taking the view that COVID is one entity. It has relatives
yeah,
who are also called COVID.
they all get scared.
They all get scared. So essentially what we're seeing is human beings around the globe scaring away COVID.
Yeah, that's the only explanation, because it doesn't make sense that something which you've been told is scarier than you just all gather and go and meet it. That's the only explanation, that you think you can scare it away. That's the only
Haven't
explanation.
you ever
because why
had
would you?
stories from the communities that deal with wildlife encroaching into their farms?
Mm.
What do? They come out in large numbers, beating drums,
Blowing
making a lot of
whistles.
noise, blowing whistles, and a herd of elephants will actually move.
Yes, it's also interesting when they use the same principle. For instance,
Huge, big animals
move away.
move away.
So the thinking is that a smaller animal that you can't see, like a virus,
Where?
should also respond in the same way.
Yes.
Logically, it actually does make sense.
I'm telling you.
It's
Yeah.
just that the entities we speak of are really so different. And how they function and what they are and what they do so different that the only thing that brings them together and makes them similar is that they're alive. An elephant doesn't infect you. If it attacks you, it'll kill you.
It'll stomp
Yep.
on you.
When someone tell me, yes, that's the point. Even this one will kill you.
Even COVID will kill you.
Yes, but I'll tell them, but you see, the elephant you can see, so you can avoid. You know, you really can't see. You can't see an elephant. COVID, it doesn't matter what you do, you can't see it.
It can see you, it will run away.
All right. Okay. When confronted with information that is beyond your understanding, I think the step to take here is just accept.
They tell you 1 + 3 is 5. You say what? Okay.
Okay. I mean, you can't really argue with that, can you?
No, it's difficult. It's genuinely and honestly very, very difficult to argue with that.
It's 17 minutes after 6 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Our live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's take a break. Let's see how the weather is going to be looking like today. And then we will begin looking at the big headlines in the newspapers this morning.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Kisumu City, Wasedonjo. Naivas supermarkets have officially arrived in Kisumu City with a second branch, the Naivas Food Market branch, and we're taking your shopping experience to the next level. Visit Naivas Kisumu Mega City branch for a wide range of quality products. Come and experience the first Naivas Food Market outside of Nairobi. It's all about fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, freshly baked goods, fresh meat, fresh food, and of course, all your other household and electronic needs from the only place to be, the Naivas Food Market branch in Kisumu Mega City. Get instant rewards when you sign up for your Naivas card and exciting discounts all year round. Naivas Food Market branch in Kisumu Mega City offers a world-class convenience with our upgraded safety measures in line with the Ministry of Health's guidelines. Digital till systems, wheelchair-friendly express counters, ample and secure parking, and excellent customer service. Enjoy convenience, variety, and value for your money every time you shop at Naivas Kisumu Mega City. Visit us now. Kisumu City, Wasedonjo.
Juma,
Yes?
have you heard the port is running an initiative to educate users of the port like you and me on the various processes for imports and exports?
Really?
Yeah.
So does this mean that we as importers and the various stakeholders will now clearly understand our roles?
Exactly. Once we understand these processes, we can comfortably sort out our customers with more knowledge. They have even highlighted the various tariff clauses.
Fantastic. So where exactly can we get this
Let's look what the skies
information
look
to
like
help
in
us
Nairobi?
understand?
It's mostly cloudy this morning at 14. Likelihood of it warming up is actually quite high. 24 the high today and lows of 14. A chance of showers later in the afternoon. Clear skies in Nakuru currently at 13 degrees. It'll change though later. Highs of 23 and lows of 11 with a rainy afternoon in store. It's overcast and cloudy in Nyeri at 14. Highs of 22 and lows of 13 with partly cloudy conditions in the afternoon. In Eldoret, clear skies at 12 degrees. Highs of 21 and lows of 11 with thunderstorms forecasted for later. And we'll look into Kisumu where it's 19 degrees and partly cloudy. Chance of rain in the afternoon with highs of 27 and lows of 18. Clear skies will rule the morning in Kakamega at 15 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 14, and it will be a thunderstormed afternoon. 24 degrees and light rain showers happening in Mombasa as we speak, and it's likely to be wet through today into Thursday and well into the weekend from what we see. Highs of 28 and lows of 23. Partly cloudy conditions in Malindi this morning at 24. Highs of 27 and lows of 24, and a shower or two likely to start quite early. All right, out of Kenya into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 18 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for later with highs of 25 and lows of 18. 22 degrees in Dar es Salaam. And it's going to have some showers later with highs of 29 and lows of 22. Joburg is clear at 14 this morning. It's warming up in South Africa. Winter said to be almost over. Highs of 25 and lows of 9. Looking to Lagos, where it's clear skies at 23 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 22 with partly cloudy conditions later. Let's take a look into Europe, where it's partly cloudy in Paris at 18 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 13 to be experienced today. 17 degrees in London, and we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. And finally, Tuesday night in New York City, and it's a hot night in New York at 32. We're going to see highs of 35 and lows of 19 in the Big Apple today.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
21 minutes after 6 o'clock. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, and the big proverb for today.
Well, since we are being proverbial, let us continue. You know, the thing about proverbs, by their very nature, they had a very specific purpose. And the language used, the metaphors, the analogies used were specific to get your attention. Takes us back to Monday. The human anatomy, for us, had areas that you never talked about or discussed, as with many other things. And this is what fell in the category of what you call taboo. Now, the concept of taboo is what we now refer to as these events or occurrences or situations that bring about stigma, a no-go zone. But the purpose was specific, so that the imagery of that particular proverb sticks to your mind. The likelihood of forgetting it was next to zero. Today's proverb is similar. However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind.
I like this one.
Unless you're walking backwards.
However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's good.
Interesting perspective. If you're walking backwards,
Yeah.
it'll remain behind in front.
But if you're walking backwards, you're not going anywhere.
You're going backwards.
You're going backwards. All right.
Any similar proverb you can think of?
When a question of the nature of the one you've asked is met with silence, it means I looked, I tried.
Can't think of one yet.
Yes.
Let's ask if you think that there's any proverb that you think could relate to this one. However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they'll always remain behind.
There are things which, unfortunately, will always be as they are. Like gravity is gravity. If you want to determine whether it changes, try and defy it.
Just step over here.
Let's try. Kidogo, small.
Small.
All right. Any proverb that's close to this, just tweet us Spice of MKE. Let's look at the big headlines. Where do you want to start?
Sure. Why you should not eat that school fees. That's on the front page of the Standard today. Learning resumption. We heard yesterday, coming from the High Court, that the community-based learning will be halted pending further determination, is what was said. So that was interesting after we had this conversation that we did yesterday. Now, learning resumption. On a day community-based learning was blocked, CS Magoha says schools may reopen before January if COVID-19 numbers fall. Going into the details of this story on page 6. And what is it? If you have spent your children's school fees, you may want to think about where to get the money back. This is after Education Cabinet Secretary says the biggest indication yet that schools could reopen before January 21 if the COVID-19 situation in the country continues to improve. And by improving, that means that the numbers are reducing. On a day the government suffered a blow to its plans to implement community-based learning, Professor Magoha said the decision to reopen schools in January is not cast in stone, and a final decision will be made depending on the COVID-19 numbers. This week, the Health Ministry suggested that the country's COVID-19 graph could be flattening, further heightening expectations that the government could shift its hardline position regarding resumption of learning. Yesterday, the figures dipped even further. I quote Magoha, and he says, "You're aware the virus is starting to look like it's going to stagnate. We're saying, should the situation change, we shall be ready and willing to look at the scenario once again in the interests of our children."
I think listening to what Professor Magoha said and then looking at the stories that have been written and, giving it a blanket, schools may reopen this year. Look, we are in September, okay? In September, this is the beginning of the third term.
Right.
We are still observing. We are still talking about ensuring we will open learning institutions when we are sure that they are safe. We have to ensure water and sanitizers are available, and even if it includes providing face masks by the government in some cases when possible. This, already just that, talks about weeks, if not a month or two. So when you say schools may reopen, I think it's very important that we pepper it with the reality of what schools.
We listened to nominated Member of Parliament and KNUT Secretary General yesterday. And what did he say? He was speaking some sense. And he said, you know what, just like you said, it's okay, say that schools need to open, that's all right. But there's certain things that need to be done in order for that to happen. Fine, say that the numbers have even reached zero. Let's say that 14 days later, the numbers have reached zero in Kenya. And you're saying that you still want to make sure that this infection doesn't then pick up somewhere. There are certain things that need to be done across the country. If it's now, because social distancing still needs to be maintained, the hygiene measures still need to be put in place. Children need to have masks, in some cases provided by government. That still needs to be done. And there needs to be a countrywide check to make sure that everything is in place, which takes time.
Yeah. And I think even just listening to Magoha, he's not saying that, well, it's possible for us to open primary schools in this third term and then close. No.
He's not saying any of that.
No. We are keenly following teachers' colleges for September reopening because this will help train and be ready for trainers of trainees for those who will have the first intake on new curriculum next year. Now, if you talk about such institutions, then you say some institutions may reopen this year. That is the reality.
That's possible.
Saying schools may reopen, do not eat your school fees now.
Is that?
I think it's creating a false impression.
That's us at it again, is it?
Yes, it is.
We're reporting something that actually was
not said. I think, unfortunately, what this does is that it leads people to now, unfortunately, just because of the manner in which people gobble up news and information, that it will be seen to be, okay, it's possible for us to go back in school in October. Will a new term be named in October, November? I think it just begs for discernment and say, just hold on, because there's certain things that would need to be done regardless.
But I think also Professor Magoha needs to undergo some training on communication because he needs some clarity. So you can hear what he's saying. He's answering questions broadly and saying, you know what, we are observing. I said from the very beginning, the determination to reopen schools will be based on what is happening in the fight against COVID. And we are still observing. So you can see this is happening now. So, he needs to come out clearly and say, you know what, look, the reality is this is what we are facing now. We have until January. So let's work.
Let's work towards that.
Let's work towards January. And let's say that some institutions may reopen this year, but those institutions cannot be the institutions that hold a majority of our learners. Obviously, we cannot start opening up primary and secondary.
The world is the world.
No way.
Look at the rest of the world.
Even he
understands this.
Understands that, and he's saying that.
Not only does he understand it, I actually think that this tentative approach the government has is a correct one. Given the vagaries that surround COVID, my friend, you really have to tread very carefully, because ask yourself, which will be worse?
Yeah.
To keep students out of school, or to open up
To take
schools
them
and
back.
then you increase the rate of infection in this country to a point where you honestly will not know what to do with it. Because that is what is likely to happen.
And I believe it is that kind of thinking that should fuel people's decisions. I mean, because even the fellows that are taking the Ministry of Education to court demanding that schools open on the 1st of September, these need to be taken into consideration as well.
I actually think that anytime I read about a case such as the one where Justice Musao gave a ruling and said, let's halt this for a while as we think about it. See, it's further debate. This issue of going to court is a good one. There are those who actually think it's a nuisance factor. It isn't. When you are discussing something as serious as the education of your children and the possibility of exposing them to a disease that might kill them, and then might add additional cost if it doesn't to the treatment, something which need not have happened, then it is a worthwhile debate.
It is. Absolutely.
It is worth reconsidering. That the government came up with this under the tree learning, okay, is an excellent thing. Community learning.
Yeah.
Utilize resources, teachers, utilize schools, teachers, churches, halls, resources that are already available to ensure that children are engaged. It is an excellent idea. It's a beautiful thing. But how to ensure that it doesn't spread, it doesn't increase the spread of the COVID is something that must underlie every discussion we have around it.
Yeah.
And this court case will open up that discussion forum even further.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, let's see how this matter goes on in court, because the person who took this case to court, one parent called Aura, is saying, first of all, the president did this the wrong way, ordering schools to close. It was not even gazetted. This was not even gazetted. It should have been debated in Parliament. And it's just because of a small matter here, not understood, called COVID. Sure.
A small matter called COVID.
Called COVID. And he's wondering, so why? Why must you force our children at home? Well, this is going to be an interesting debate.
It will.
It is. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a break, see what's happening on the roads, and then we look at more and more headlines in the papers today. Good morning.
Traffic.
Okay, looking at traffic news for this morning. Unfortunately, we're going to start with some bad news, guys. Terrible accident on the Nairobi-Nakuru highway this morning. Terrible accident, and it's affecting traffic in both directions. It's a fatal one, so as you approach the area, please do so with caution. Police and emergency services having just arrived and trying to sort that out, already affecting traffic as you head towards the 7 o'clock hour. So you need to watch out for that. Tafa Valley. There was another accident on Mombasa Road towards Kitengela yesterday, and because the roads were so smooth, we saw this happen. We're hoping that nothing like that happens again today. Let's look at Jogo Road. It's flowing fairly well. No notable traffic at this point. Getting into the CBD will be fine. Likely to pick up right around the City Stadium roundabout as you're heading towards the CBD or going left towards industrial area. Okay, on Uhuru Highway from Nyayo Stadium heading towards Westlands, it's starting to build up as well. Just know what's in store for you as you make your way towards the CBD and then out towards Westlands. but it shouldn't be too bad. Jogo Road, like we said, is okay. Mombasa Road, getting past the SGR and then to the airport turnoff is where you'll find some traffic. But out past General Motors, it's not too bad. All right, shall we look at what it looks like later? Let's do that. Let us know if you're stuck anywhere. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Talk to us and we might be able to help out or at least share that information with somebody else. Good?
Spice FM, Malindi.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Our brothers and sisters in Migori.
More strong thing.
Eh? Things have happened. So the DPP, after reviewing a file presented to him by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and appointing a team of leading prosecutors to review that file and ensure that the evidence presented is strong, says, let's arrest and charge the governor, his children, and his kin
And associates.
for corruption, 73.5 million shillings. This one, as it read from the DPP statement, is like a movie. It is clearly like a movie. I mean, it's one of those that you just look at and you wonder, so Kiambu, as if Kiambu was not bad enough. This one is even worse.
Eric, the thing that I think it signals, something that we have mentioned on numerous occasions in this very show,
Yep.
is that much as Kenyans believe that if you're in a position of power and authority, it's like you've been given a blank slate on which to function with impunity.
Yep.
It is the beginning of not just taking to court of people who have broken certain laws or committed certain offenses. It's the beginning of seeing these people ending up in jail. And it won't be 1 or 2 or 3. No. Remember, there have been cases that have, and of recent, we even saw the issue of the 3 senators. The DPP simply said no. When it got to him, said no. There's nothing. Let these people go. We have nothing to take to court in this particular case. So by the time we've read in previous cases where these counties and with the audit queries that arose, when you're talking about more money than this 73.7 million that you're talking about, huge amounts were actually being talked about. But they only pinpoint this 73.7. The implication here seems strong that this is what they can prove.
Yep.
And believe me, even if it was 200,000 shillings, the case would be the same.
Yep. And remember already there was the issue of a house in Loresha, which
There was
another
that little
agency
issue,
had already
yes.
gone to court and said, you know what, this we are attaching. Any rent that comes from this particular house is now being attached. It's going to government.
Believe me.
Any tenant who's living in this house in Loresha, because
paying.
we believe that the money that was coming from here was being paid to a daughter of the governor, and this was through corruption. So this is what's going to happen. I mean, this is drama. Looking at what the DPP is saying, that Okoth Obado allegedly used some proxies to get this benefit of 73.5 million shillings. And these companies were basically being run by, these proxies were brothers and a mother. Right? So 3 of these proxies are brothers, Jared Peter Kwaga, Petroba Ochanda, and Joram Opala, and their mother, Penina Auma Otango, and the spouse to Jared Peter Okwago, Christina Kinyi, and his sister-in-law, Caroline Onyango.
So essentially, it's a family business.
Come
Yes.
on, as in you use everybody possible.
All these guys are alleged to have created companies, and these companies were quite a number, that then won the tenders to supply to the county assembly. So a business entity owned by Patroba Ochanda is called Joyush. Swafecon Engineering, a business entity owned by Ochanda Otieno. Akinyi Ochola owns a company called Donkey Press. Atenas Services owned by Akinyi Ochola again. Auma Otago, their mother, owns a company called Kajulu Business. Then they are directors of also companies called Touchdog, Maktabak, Deltrack, Soultrack, Seletrack,
Strong team.
Dolphus Software. And then, so this is according to what the investigations are showing. The audit trail of the money revealed that the companies wired 38.9 million shillings to the governor's children's accounts. This is Achola Dana Koth, Susan Scarlett Akoth, and Jerry Zachary Okoth. This was used to pay their school fees, upkeep, maintenance, and medical bills. They were studying in Australia, Scotland, and the UK. Straight money was going there. Then there's some further 34 million shillings used to purchase a house in Loresho, whose beneficial owner is Evelyn Adhiambo Zachary, the governor's daughter.
For the longest time, anytime we talked about grand larceny or we talked about graft, children don't feature. At best, the individual and the spouse, feature.
Yep.
We are into a new realm
I'm telling you.
where the children are now beginning to feature and are as culpable as the father, who is the person who was at the helm, or is reportedly was at the helm of everything that we're reading here.
You could argue, though, about the capability of the children.
To
If you're in
comprehend what was
Australia-
really happening.
If you're in Australia and there's a company that's paying your school fees, and your father has told you that this company, well,
And your
is
upkeep
just
money
paying
is coming
school
from
fees.
here.
The law doesn't care.
That's the thing.
It
But
doesn't
unfortunately,
care.
but it goes a little bit further than that, because from what we understand, it's beyond school fees being paid,
There's
right?
the house.
There's the house. There are businesses that are in your name. There are businesses for which you're supposedly director, right? So, I mean, it goes beyond just your upkeep being taken care of. In this case, man, he sowed into the very fabric of his family with this corruption.
If the
Allegedly.
if the government proceeds to follow the dictates that it has actually laid down through its various agencies, what it means is this. One, these assets, forget the ones that we are reading about, there may be others. There may be plots. They will be seized. Then, if these things are featured as an income, the Kenya Revenue Authority will come in
Yep.
and they'll demand their pound
Yeah,
of flesh.
30%.
Now, let me just read for you what the Kenya Revenue Authority can do in such a case. One, they will collect not just money from you, but from even third parties associated with you to pay those taxes. They'll seize, there'll be a seizure and forfeiture of goods, all right? There'll be an arrest and detention. These are things that they can
This
actually...
is just KRA on its own.
I'm talking about KRA, okay? Issuance of departure prohibition, meaning, forget travel advisory, you cannot travel. You can't go anywhere, full stop, okay? Power to search and seize, meaning they can actually come and look at everything and anything. And all
Well-
these people who are being mentioned and others associated with them, you've just opened yourself to being examined forensically.
Yep.
Exhibit A.
Power to restrain goods, vehicles, premises, meaning, okay. Power to enter and search these vessels, vehicles, okay?
Dow.
Now, you tell me, do you really want KRA to be on your neck? This case, why I'm bringing it up, the headline in the Daily Business says KRA identifies wealthy 1,309 individuals who owe 259 billion Kenya shillings. And
259.
billion they have identified, meaning these are people who have not paid. So KRA is going after them. So now, I just brought in that just to illustrate what can be done. This is not for you. This is to you. Should KRA decide that you fall in the category of persons that they should bequeath this sort of attention to?
Hey.
When we spoke about the case with Waluke a few weeks ago,
Yep.
we asked ourselves the question: you do this, and then you implicate members of your family in now when they need to help you get out of a sticky situation.
Yep.
This one goes beyond that. You put your family in the mess,
Direct beneficiaries
I-
of this.
and then they come
Look at
after.
Waititu as well.
I mean,
In fact, Waititu now is alleged to have actually incorporated the daughter as a director of a company.
Now tell me.
And then this company is the one that is winning tenders. Or even, this is very direct. So wife and daughter are the directors of a company that comes and wins tenders in a county government where you're the chief executive.
It is very scary time for the governor.
It is.
Because what you're going to hear, if it isn't already done, there's hardly any county where the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have not sort of like sat down, built a base, sat and looked. This is a really small tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, think for a second what this means for the governors. It's really genuinely scary times. Because some of these things they don't even need to look far. All they need to ask is, how is this happening? Just a simple question.
Yep.
You may think you may not even have companies registered through your relatives, but there's something about your income and your lifestyle and what you do.
That doesn't add up to what you earn.
It doesn't actually quite add up.
So in some case, someone thinks that they've really beaten the system. It is not me. It is not my wife. It is not my daughter. It's not my brother. It is somebody else who has registered a company and they have won the tender.
Remember,
There is no direct link between, I am not a relative of this person.
actually,
So I don't know them. And then, Kumbe, the way they are paying you, they're still paying you directly.
if the government wants to find a connection, they will find it. And this is against the backdrop. Remember of the cases within the counties with regards to the COVID funds. Company registered, set in motion at a certain point in time,
Yep.
barely a month or so prior to the actual tendering and the provision of that.
Yep.
All these things, those who are in business who assume that they're immune from this should understand they're not.
No.
Because if you are linked to any of this, even if you have what you call a legitimate business, questions will be asked about that business and the monies. Because it says, follow the money. This is what's happening. The money is being followed.
There's a trail.
There's a trail.
Always.
And it looks like those officers of ours who were elected to run our counties, they seem to be good at one thing, leaving a trail.
They're very careless and callous. You just assume.
That's what impunity does. That's the backhanded nature of impunity.
And also the lack of trust. Because this basically just tells you, I cannot deal with very many people. So, Mama Penina, you tell your children to register companies. You'll get the business. So, Mama Penina goes and brings the children plus their wives, they register companies. And then they get the businesses. And now, you need to pay me. Now, we can't start using anti-79 proxies. That money may disappear. So, what you do is pay my daughter's school fees.
Eric, you know what is interesting? Even as you're saying it, you're very right. There's lack of trust. But also, there's the element of greed. Because there are entities that actually do these very things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Known, reputable. And it isn't beyond the same activities that we're now calling illegal to take place. But given that this is what they've been doing, they'll be more adept. I'm actually not proposing a method by which the system can be beaten. I'm simply saying that someone who has been at something for the longest time will understand the where-to-falls of that business better than somebody who just, by virtue, their qualification is they're being related to you.
But it still will not be difficult. Look at De Santos. Isabella De Santos, even after using big companies,
The big accounting firms of the world.
Yes.
Even that did not help. The ones
it
who
was still
squeaky clean reputation for the longest time, nobody would ever question when it came to any kind of transaction that they were handling. But still.
All this may have been true before Enron happened. And all this may have been true before even the World Bank happened. Remember, you're talking about institutions that were supposedly squeaky clean, and these matters are not supposed to even arise in their corridors.
Yeah.
Not only did it arise, people were found culpable, and people were given scholarships to go and attend some jail time.
Yeah.
Okay? So, no one is actually exempt. And if you go internationally, in my opinion, now you open yourself to even further scrutiny.
Yeah. More big time.
Talking of that, something interesting has also happened within the National Assembly. Yes, the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, has ordered a forensic audit of 134 billion allocated for fight against COVID amid public uproar and misuse of funds. So, which chicken came before which egg? Is it the public uproar that has woken them up to this reality? Is it that they found evidence? Is it that they've listened to what the
They're
people are
following
saying?
orders.
Or have they listened to the former Prime Minister?
They are
What is
following
happening?
orders. You see, the former Prime Minister has expressed himself. So it's upon the foot soldiers to find means of ensuring that whatever he has said can be seen to be done. Who's the chairman of this committee? One Opio Wandai.
And we know exactly where this gentleman comes from. Yes,
He is a member of ODM.
Yes, he is a
He
member
is
of
very
ODM.
close to the leadership of ODM. So you can basically say that the Accounts Committee of the National Assembly is waking up now because
Somebody
it
has
has been
spoken.
whipped to action.
Yeah.
But let's see. Is the Auditor General going to act on this? I mean, the issue of the Auditor General should conduct a special audit into COVID-19 funds was there even before Raila spoke.
It was.
And we haven't heard from the Auditor General.
Remember, at that point in time, we didn't even know who the Auditor General
Well, we didn't
was.
even have an Auditor General. Yes.
So now we actually do have. So
She did actually speak, and she did say that such was going to be done. She confirmed the same, that they would go in and check in terms of what was actually spent.
But Eric, the issue that you mentioned with regards to this still rears its head. You read all this, and the focus still comes back to the CEO, Jonah Manjari, and KEMSA.
And KEMSA.
And yet, you cannot really discuss this thing and just focus on KEMSA. No, you cannot.
You know,
KEMSA play a big part, yes?
That time in 2008, when everything we wanted to be done by people from outside the country. We wanted to rewrite a constitution. That team had to comprise foreigners. TJRC had to comprise foreigners because we were not trusting ourselves. Maybe the same thing should happen. Bring an international investigator to actually conduct a forensic audit of all the decisions, all the money that has been spent on COVID-19.
And they will find a needle in a haystack. They will.
No, there are people whose job it is to do precisely that.
They'll find
And
it.
they have a reputation, to protect, and they know
They'll find it.
that when you're given that job, you do it properly.
Do
Right.
it properly.
And if you're given that job with conditions that don't suit your purposes, you decline. Eric, that is a wonderful suggestion.
Let's take a break. Remind you about this portal by the Kenya Ports Authority, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, KARGO. It's an information portal that lets you know and understand the operations of the Kenya Ports Authority.
Right, so yesterday we looked at documentation for import services. Today we're going to look at documentation and processing of the same for export cargo. Right, and so we're going to go through those steps today and just again focusing on the documentation because sometimes there's quite a lot that you need to keep track of in terms of the papers that you need. Now, when you're sending something out of the country, let's say it's French beans today, leaving for Europe, the thing is that you need to make sure that all your documentation is in place and Captain Cargo makes that as easy as possible. We're starting off with the booking of space by your shipping agent. And so what happens is that you're offered or what is called a shipping order. Your agent now submits the export cargo information to KPA so that they're aware of what is actually leaving the country and it goes through the necessary checks. So they lodge this entry and the Revenue Authority then passes the entry. So you have a shipping order, it goes to KPA, KPA sends it to KRA, and KRA now passes the entry. And we'll be looking at the flow of that documentation as you try to export your French beans to Luxembourg.
kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right. What other big headline are you looking at there, City?
What I'm looking at is, let me choose. I'm actually spoiled for choice here. All right? Parliament at risk of dissolution.
Okay.
We've heard that one before, haven't we? And guess what? It hasn't really changed.
This is about what anyway? It could be a new reason. Is it the same old reason?
Yes.
The composition of parliament?
Yes.
Gender balance?
Why do you think I kept quiet? I gave it that dramatic pause. Yes. Yes, it is. It may risk. You see, the thing about risk when it comes to parliament, or its reference to parliament, is that time is elastic to death. Okay? It is a risk today. It will be a risk next year.
You're at risk of dying.
Yes, in the next 20 years.
Every day. Surely.
But what it actually does bring out is something particularly interesting. Remember that discourse that we said? Our elected leaders, through their various organs of parliament, seem to be engaged in. If something as basic as this cannot be passed, and it's a basic requirement for actually parliament to exist, why are we debating? Why don't they just dissolve parliament? I mean, in all sincerity.
Yep.
Why is this thing has been discussed at length?
True. It also exposes something, and this is when it comes to, now that we'll be discussing constitution, when it comes to implementation of this constitution, and you keep talking about this city, change.
Yes.
This constitution called for change, and this is change in the people's mindset. It appears that we got the hardware, yes, we wrote the constitution, but for us to implement that constitution, we need the software of we changing. Some of those things that we're even talking about, we need to amend now. It's because we have refused to change. If you're not willing to change, one of the things that we're going to say is, this whole thing of gender balance, let's just leave it alone, because it'll never come to light. So why don't we just abandon that? It's because we are refusing to change. We are refusing to confront the fact that we said we'd like to have a better representation.
And one of the things that is actually beginning to actually support that particular perspective of this gender parity that we're talking about, if you look at the world leaderships right now, everything which is related to COVID, the reporting that we see is that countries that are led by women have fared and continue to fare better than, and this one, take your pick, better than other countries that are led by men. As I said, take your pick.
Yep.
They seem to be managing this thing better. So the inclusion of women was envisioned to add much needed value to this entire discourse that's supposed to guide our country. And Parliament has failed. Now, operative word here, failed. So if they have failed to actually enact or to ensure that this is enacted, they have failed to live by the dictates of the Constitution. And these are the people who are supposed to be watchdog, the place where we make our policies, we pass our
human rights
laws.
will be protected.
So you are failing on this one important thing. Surely, why should you stay?
Why should you stay there?
Why? What exactly are you doing?
It's true.
And this is not complicated, by the way.
It's true. I think we should be forced to implement this constitution.
Yes.
By the courts.
Yes.
And this thing of saying, if you dissolve parliament, you are going to force the leaders to bring the conversation to the people and say, you know what, people, we need to have a way. We need to go to the political parties, go to the electorate and tell them,
find a solution.
We must elect more women. We must have more women on the ballot. We must then, because having more women, it starts from there. You must have more women on the ballot. If you have them on the ballot, then you are likely to have them getting elected.
Yes,
and it also affects the conversation where you talk about then, you hear that, women then become yellow-livered when it comes to making decisions to run into office.
Yep.
Once you have it in the system, it encourages more and more to come forward. It just happens that way. The same way where more and more girls started to go to school, more and more girls were encouraged to enroll in school by virtue of the fact that the system accepted that as a way of life.
The visual effect of something is always profound.
Absolutely.
And the consequences that follow are also profound. It's just that some of it is not greatly advertised, or it isn't seen, but it's actually there.
Coming to the top of the hour, this is a Situation Room. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Speaking about Nakuru this morning, we already saw that terrible accident that took place this morning headed on that highway, and they're still trying to clear that out. As they're heading towards the Rift Valley, for example, on Kamandura, the flyovers, total white darkness is what is being talked about this morning. The fog is extremely low. It's about 2 feet off the ground this morning, guys. So you need to be very careful when driving. But it seems that on Gong Road, people were not very careful. Just around Matasia on Kamkuru Road this morning, another fatal accident has taken place and 2 dead, unfortunately. So guys, please take it easy. I know Mombasa Road today, the traffic is not too terrible. So that is now tempting people to move a lot faster. So this is not even an update per se of where there's traffic. It's an update of please, guys, just please be careful. Lives being lost are not necessary at this point. Okay, coming off Thika Road and getting to the Globe Cinema roundabout, or rather the Globe overpass. Should be fine as you're getting into the CBD, not too much of an issue there. Let us know where you might be stuck or where you see some imminent traffic. We'll be able to share the word. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
Minutes after 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for choosing Spice FM. And also, we want to welcome our audience on KTN Home this morning, this Wednesday, the 26th of August, 2020. Welcome to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi. In Mombasa, we are on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru. In Eldoret, we are on 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.7. We also live stream the show on digital platforms www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as live streaming on Facebook. Spice FM KE is our page, and our account on YouTube is Spice FM KE, as well as on Twitter, Spice FM KE. We are talking about the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It's celebrating 10 years since the promulgation tomorrow. And the discussion that we'll be having this hour plus other hours is looking at the implementation of this. And just before we went to the top of the hour, we had started on that. But let's begin this hour with today's proverb. CT?
Yes, today's proverb. However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind.
However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they'll always remain behind.
Mm-hmm. Here, pun is intended fully.
Okay.
Completely. If you can think of any close translation or any other proverb that's associated with this in terms
Or
of
approximates
meaning,
it.
approximately, just tweet us, Spice FM KE. We'd like to review it as well. So, but we're talking about the implementation of the Constitution, and especially now that this headline, that Parliament is at risk of dissolution. Parliament has been at risk of dissolution since the very beginning of 2013, after the election.
Even before.
Right? And this is with regards to the gender balance. Well, courts have gone, they've said, oh, this can be progressive. Let's allow parliamentarians time to think about this, to see the best way to come up with a formula, one that works best so that we can have better gender inclusion in representation of Parliament and the Senate.
Lo and behold,
Attempts have been made, attempts have flopped. And it comes back into the implementation of the Constitution, which is what we're discussing this hour. Is the Constitution ripe for amendments yet? Have we implemented this Constitution fully? Have we done everything that we aspired to do with the Constitution? Have we received the benefits of this Constitution? All those conversations will bring us back to, now we have realized, you call it the lived experience.
it's a lived experience.
Now with 10 years of this Constitution, there are things that we put on paper and then they got into reality and we realize, hey, maybe not what we had in mind, maybe not what we had envisioned. There are people who argue for and against devolution. People who argue for and against the units of devolution. Should they be 47? Should we reduce them? Should we increase them? Are they working well? Is it benefiting us? There are those that argue about very many other aspects, the Bill of Rights and the extent to which the Bill of Rights gives the rights to the citizens. But then the question is, have we really internalized our role in implementing this Constitution?
The question you're asking, Eric, is, were we actually even ready for this Constitution?
Were we?
Yes, because if you look at the manner in which we handle the Constitution, it is in the same way we've handled the old Constitution. If you and your segment of people, of Kenyans, think that this Constitution, this aspect of the Constitution suits you, you support it. When it doesn't suit you, for that time, by the way, these things are time specific,
Right.
then you oppose it.
The question it would sound something so obvious, but who's responsible for the implementation of a constitution that has been promulgated?
The question that you want to ask cannot be answered by so-and-so as being the response. No.
Is an entity that we're looking at? To me,
Actually-
it's very simple. Who is responsible? There's certain tenets of the constitution that come into play when it comes to then how a government will be, how a country will be governed. Who is responsible for putting those in place? There's a reason why I'm asking this question, obviously.
Okay. Before you get to the reason, let me just pepper the discussion by saying this. You see, when you're talking about implementation and who's responsible for it, I would bring in the discussion of not the responsibility, but the thing I asked, the readiness. You may want to implement it. Yes, you may even set the process in motion. But given who we are as a country, as a people, are we ready for it?
So when you say you may want to, who is you?
The you
You
here,
is the people.
yes, who are represented by the various agencies, arms of government, etc., ad infinitum.
Even though the Constitution starts with we, the
The
people.
people
Okay.
of Kenya.
Right. Now, just like you said, there's a vehicle. You may want to go somewhere, but you must use a vehicle in order to get there, right? The vehicle also then has to be readily, in preparation, has to have fuel, has to have other things to make it possible for this trip to take place. Now, if the vehicle wants to go in a different direction, it is going to be impossible for you to get where you are going. Now, I'm saying if the intention of this particular vehicle, which is going to make this trip necessary, is to go somewhere else, then this thing, which you're calling the Constitution and other tenets, then it would be very difficult to achieve. If somebody is there for their own plans and purposes, for them to see ways in which they can be able to garner some kind of expediency when it comes to political alignment or anything else, it will not be possible then for you to be able to see to whatever percentage this particular constitution taking place.
So in your mind then, Ndu, as you are asking this, are you saying that the driver is a certain individual or a certain institution?
Yeah, when we're looking at the institutions and agencies and the arms of government that are responsible for putting this in place.
I disagree. I think the driver is we, the people. That's why the preamble of the Constitution starts with we, the people of Kenya. And it goes with all those legal jargon, acknowledging, honoring, proud of our ethnic, cultural, respectful of the environment, committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the individual, the family, communities, and the nation, recognizing the aspirations of all Kenyans, exercising our sovereign and inalienable right to determine the form of governance of our country. Now, therefore, adopt, enact, and give this Constitution to ourselves and to our future generations. We, the people, is the person in charge, is the one holding the steering.
You see, when we say we the people, It's not this amorphous body of people who picket and make noise. We, even those in authority, are part of the we, the people. To answer your question.
Wholesale. As say.
We, the people, elect you. We, the people, have the power to protest and tell you we don't like this. We, the people, have the power to reject certain things. And actually, we do.
So
and
if we the people had that power, and
we have the power. Whether we use it or not is a different matter. But we have the power.
So if we the people have the power to have all of these things done, then why is it not being done? And people are able to be swayed, for example, to go ahead and now start to bring in
Because
change,
of what CT is
to
saying.
start to bring in change, whereby something that was instituted in the first place has not even been seen to its completion.
Because we,
Then
the
why have
people, were
we
not
the
ready
people-
for this constitution.
So why then did we the people say that we're going to go ahead with it? And this is what I'm saying at this point. If we the people truly have the power and are not speaking up about it to the point where something can be done, then there's a problem, fundamentally so. And that's what I'm saying.
What you're discussing, purely from its academic perspective, is a universal problem. And that is why we, the people who are elected because it is understood that this segment of the we, the people, are able to usher us and move us in a direction that would get us to that desired end. Now, we, the people in that segment, don't seem to have done a good job of it.
No.
This is why this debate is becoming what it is. Because if you look at government institutions where you have a we, the people, who have decided to utilize the powers the Constitution gives them, you see change. We, the people who are represented in the judiciary, have shown us that they are actually trying to ensure that the dictates of the law are followed. You may not like it, but they'll tell you, excuse me, this is what the law says.
I'll give you an example, something simple like voting, and maybe it's a poor example, but the example of the United States. You see examples of individuals in whatever capacity that they might have in professional organizations and societies, across the student movement, across celebrities, asking Americans to come out and do something as simple as voting, because they realize that if you don't vote, we will have a problem. You see? So for me, that's a clear example. And it doesn't stop. Year after year after year, you find people joining the bandwagon, whether it's professionals in the medical field, whether it's professionals in the education sector, wherever it is, across universities, across celebrity. What are they doing? Telling people, understand what happens when you vote. Interestingly enough, understand what doesn't happen when you don't vote. Right?
I'm glad you chose that country.
The movement... and like I said, it may be a poor example, but
it's an excellent example.
Just
in my mind.
that of getting people to vote, because they understand that it is their constitutional right, number one, to vote. It is their constitutional right and probably even their constitutional duty to get members of the society to come out and vote. And what do you say? Just what you said. Because they engage in such activity, realizing that the Constitution allows them to do such, you see change.
When you're allowed to do something, you're also allowed to do the opposite. You also don't have to vote. It isn't mandatory. You will not go to jail if you don't vote. You will not be denied access to your car if you don't vote. Your children will not be allowed access into schools if you don't vote. You have that choice. Now, remember, there's a process that this country underwent and is still undergoing to get to the point where these constitutional rights are realized by all its citizens. As we speak, it isn't. Because if it was, it would be a different debate. But the one thing that they seem to have achieved in large measure is to ensure that some of these things that we considered basic, that's what the so-called first world is about. Things which are considered basic can almost be taken for granted. Meaning, their representatives or their we, the people group, have over the years ensured that certain things are taken care of, whether it is schooling, whether it is hospitalization, social amenities, housing. These are things that, as I said, by and large, you can take for granted. Now, we are at a different spot. We haven't even got those basics. So when we talk about implementation of the Constitution, believe me, if you are to take a poll and ask Kenyans individually, the thinking will be different. There's a segment of this particular population of this wonderful country who will tell you, you know what we would like is this. The other ones will tell you is this. You know why? Their understanding of the Constitution and the benefits has to be relevant to their situation as they see it at that point in time. There's no universality of saying that, oh, by the way, we can assume that there's free healthcare for everybody. Nothing of that sort. You can say there's free education. Yes, in theory, largely, there are aspects of education which you will be told are free. But there are others that you end up paying for. Not even indirectly, directly. Our need to have the Constitution implemented is to get to a point, for instance, where the rule of law is king, where everyone knows we are not there.
Yep.
The rule of law is not king in this country.
No, it isn't.
Now, that is what that's why I told you the example you gave is wonderful. You know why? The citizens are clear about their rights, they are clear about the rule of law, and they know everyone can be subjected to it. And as the saying goes, albeit very overused, you can take it to the bank. They know. Us, we don't. We are really iffy about it.
Kenyans don't know that, from what you're saying now, that there are certain rights which you should. Now, if you don't have if you don't have the provision of certain resources, that what you call basics, the needs that should be provided for you, that there should be then access to education, that there should be access to proper infrastructure and healthcare and things like that, you actually don't take it to anybody. You suffer it on your own. You don't take it to anybody. In this case, there's no bank that you take it to, right? There's nobody that you go to and say, actually, you know what? Now, is that coming from a misunderstanding of what should be, or a preoccupation with trying to get those things for yourself as opposed to demanding it from the powers that be at that point?
Prior to the advent of private schools in this country, rather the proliferation of it, we had what we used to call Harambee schools, meaning the community figures, we need a school. But even prior to that, prior to independence, we had independent schools. You look at the need you have, you know the importance of education, and you as a community decide, let's set this up. Now, the wonderful thing about those things was the government then would take over those schools, that it would become government schools. Then you even had semi-private, meaning someone comes in, builds a school, they were called assisted schools, meaning you run the school, but the government provides you with teachers whom they pay. Now, for the longest time, this system worked. If you are expanding learning to encompass the population of people who need it at the most basic level, but you didn't at the same time plan to build institutions to house them, already they're in layer failure. But the government acknowledges the private sector came in and provided the much needed assistance. All right? That is we, the people, taking initiative. Despite the failure of the government to meet the need that was clearly there and which they may have had in their planning, but they didn't implement.
It is we, the people, exercising the sovereignty and the sovereign and inalienable right to determine the form of governance of their country and participating fully in the making of the constitution, and also participating fully in the governance of their country. We, the people, we enacted this constitution, yes. But it is some of this conversation that we keep having. For example, the gender conversation. The gender conversation is not only deadlocked in Parliament.
No.
The gender conversation is deadlocked in our society.
It's deadlocked in our minds.
All of us have a conversation now, bring in 10 people and tell them, all right, so what's the best way to ensure that we have proper gender representation? Observing this 70-30 gender rule in Parliament, you'll have diverse opinions. In fact, you'll have a number of people among those 10 who will say, why do we need to have that thing anyway? And a way of them just basically just pushing it away from their mind will be telling you, look at the women reps. What do they do in that Parliament? They're just flower girls. As a way of just pushing you the conversation and showing you that this is a failure. I don't want to participate in this conversation. Look, anyway, it's not working. Right? We are not willing to sit down and agree. We agreed that we want to have this as an ideal. We agreed that we want to see this through. Let's discuss it. Let's agree amongst ourselves that in our ward, we are going to ensure that we have women vying. In our ward, we shall look at them not from the basis of their gender, but from the basis of what they are presenting to us. We shall elect them based on that. Across the country, you will not see that. You will not have uniformity of thinking, of vision, of purpose. We, the people, enacted our constitution, gave ourselves a constitution, and then we were not ready to change to live to the ideals of this constitution.
We are struggling with that one thing, change. That is why we, the people, prefer handouts. That is why we, the people, keep talking as though the talking alone will help. But you feel some relief. You've at least talked about it. If you've expressed extreme anger, at least you've done something about it. If you are on social media and you even have the opportunity to insult someone, then you've done something about it.
Yeah.
But does it bring about change? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You see, when we, the people, don't even get to the point where they understand the power that actually has been given to them, or the power that they sought and they've enabled themselves to have, then we, the people, will remain in the same spot that they have been in. Every once in a while, when it looks like the pot is getting hot, you'll hear, oh, Parliament might be dissolved. This story has gone on for so long, it's tired, it's old. Parliament should have been dissolved.
Based on that just alone.
It should have been dissolved.
Based just on that alone,
Yes.
whereby certain things were not able to be established that had been ensconced in the Constitution from before. It should have been sorted out. If it wasn't sorted out, then yes, there should have been dissolution of Parliament.
Look at the times when there have been votes on this particular matter in Parliament. Look at the drama that happens in Parliament.
Or lack of drama.
No.
In some, or lack of drama where the room is empty, so that such things cannot be discussed at all.
That is the drama that falls under the category of theatre of the absurd. Because you're thinking, but this is an important thing. That absence tells you the value that those parliamentarians who are predominantly male, it tells you about their attitude towards women, their attitude towards the law, and most importantly, what they think of their people.
I also look at this and I say that, for something that should be in reality quite a simple decision to make, it's unfortunate that either there is no understanding of what could actually happen when you include the other gender in this fundamental decision-making process. There is also a refusal, or it seems that you cede power to the other gender when you include them in this conversation. And unfortunately, both of these things it couldn't be farther from the truth.
We have communities in this country where the prospect of actually electing a woman is completely unthinkable. Unthinkable. A woman going to the ballot and being voted. Sorry. And it's not just something that the men hold as sacrosanct. The women are included in this thought process.
Well, I dare say that women are the perpetrators. Women, to a large extent, unfortunately, are the perpetrators of an attitude really that cannot be gotten rid of.
Do you know what is strange is that the thinking behind it is not even as ominous as it may be made to sound. It is a cultural norm, roles, and people going by that. But there is a negative evolutionary element that enters it. And it seems to say that women are not capable. Not true.
It's not true. And the conversation actually goes even beyond women and the issue of gender in the realization of the ideals of this constitution in many others, even those that have been implemented. Look at devolution and look at how we are treating devolution now. Is it what had been envisioned? Are we ensuring that what we wanted to see in devolution is what we are seeing in devolution on the ground? Look at now the conversation that is happening. We need to expand that national executive so that we can have more people, more inclusion. Is that where the problem really is? If we look at this constitution, is that what we had in mind when we were enacting and giving unto ourselves and our future generations this constitution? This is the conversation that we are having this morning, celebrating 10 years of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Tomorrow, out of this break, because we're going into a quick break, we'll be speaking with the former Chief Executive Officer and the Secretary of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review, Dr. Ekuru Aukot. He's one of the people who have come out openly and said, you know what, I'm proposing that we amend some aspects of this constitution. And the conversation that we're having today is the constitution really ready for tinkering, for some amendments? That's what we're having shortly. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home, 24 minutes after 7. We'll be back shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Naivas Megacity in Kisumu is officially open. If you're in Kisumu, you can now enjoy world-class shopping and access to a wide range of products and services at the brand new Naivas Kisumu Megacity. And we're celebrating all week on Spice Drive with me, Monique, every day. Tune in for the chance to win vouchers worth 2,500 shillings that you can redeem at the brand new Naivas Kisumu Megacity branch in Kisumu every day from 3 p.m. Make your way to Naivas Food Market at Kisumu Megacity Mall and enjoy offers, instant rewards when you sign up for your Naivas loyalty card, and excellent service. Also, every time you shop at Naivas Kisumu Megacity, you are guaranteed that safety measures are in place and you can now enjoy upgraded digital tills and an extensive range of products and services. Tune in and find out how you can win from 3 p.m. on the Spice Drive, only on Spice FM.
It's warming up ever so
The
slightly in
weather.
Nairobi at 15 degrees now. Mostly cloudy conditions are going to continue for most parts of today, though. Highs of 24 and lows of 14. Nakuru, it's said to be sunny, but it's not quite. The fog is quite low in some parts of Nakuru town. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 13 with showers later. Nyeri is overcast at 14 degrees. Highs of 22 and lows of 13 and a chance of a shower later. Mostly sunny in Eldoret at 12 degrees. Partly cloudy conditions and then into rainy conditions later with highs of 21 and lows of 11. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu at 20 this morning, highs of 27 and lows of 18 with showers later. Mostly sunny in Kakamega at 15, highs of 25 and lows of 14 with showers expected later in the afternoon. It's going to be a wet day in Mombasa as well, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Showers in Malindi at 24, highs of 27 and lows of 23. Kampala is partly cloudy at 18, highs of 24 and lows of 18, also a wet afternoon in sight. 23 degrees and partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam. We'll see a shower later with highs of 29 and lows of 22 in Joburg. It still continues to warm up at 13 degrees. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 9 with partly cloudy conditions through the rest of the evening. And in Lagos, 23 degrees, clear skies with periodic clouds going into partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 29 and lows of 23.
Mellow Spice.
So the fog is quite low in certain parts of the city, and we know that a couple of accidents already recorded this morning. Gong Road, Thika Road has recorded just another one now, and it seems to be crazy, guys. We know the fog is low and visibility then is affected, so we're asking you to please be careful. All right, getting into the city from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, getting into the CBD and then on towards Westlands is moving very slowly. It's also moving slowly between the SGR and Cabanas, and that is on Mombasa Road. But it shouldn't be too bad after General Motors till you get to the construction area. But then after that, you should be fine. It's the morning traffic. We expect everybody out and about. Nothing major is what we see. If there's any holdups or roadblocks, we'll let you know. Spice FMKE. Let us know as well what you see. You want to keep it moving for everybody.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Coming up to 7:30. Good morning and thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM and KTN Home and www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. In the room, my name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga and Nduoko. Today and tomorrow we'll be looking at the Constitution of Kenya as we celebrate 10 years since the promulgation of the Constitution. And the question that we are asking ourselves in this hour is, are there sufficient grounds really to start amending the Constitution as it was enacted? Have we fully implemented this Constitution? What we're discussing for the past half an hour was whether Kenyans were really ready to have this Constitution that we said that we give ourselves and to our future generations. Are we ready to have the conversation of the Constitution? on what is exactly required and needed to implement this. But let's look at the journey to how we got here and look at the committee of experts that went and looked at the various drafts and then produced a harmonized draft constitution. And this was then taken to Naivasha, where a political process took place. There was negotiations by various parties, and then got to the point where they agreed that this is what we are going to take to the people for a referendum. And the people overwhelmingly voted yes for that constitution, which we have today. All right. Speaking to us on that journey is the former secretary and CEO of the Committee of Experts, and this is Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who's joining us on the line now. Ekuru, good morning.
Good morning, Lucky. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Ekuru, you'll have to switch off one of the stream on your laptop, I think, because you're having a feedback on that.
Your people told me to keep my phone on.
Phone, yes, keep phone on. Keep switch off the stream. I think there's a feedback, and the stream on your device.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. We can hear you. But we still have that feedback. I think as our producer Randall sorts this out with Ekuru, we'll be joining him again shortly. This is where we're having this conversation about, I mean, what is it exactly that we need to do and think about the Constitution of Kenya? We'll be speaking with Ekuru Aukot. If you're on the line, Ekuru, you can hear us, then you'll speak to us. And if you get back on the line, we'll be able to join you shortly. Constitution, the way we were saying, guys, I mean, we have the Constitution. We've had it for now 10 years. We've had aspects of it that have been implemented. And the journey to implementation of the Constitution was even contained in the Constitution itself in terms of schedules. This is what you're going to do. You're going to create a commission that is going to look at all the laws that are required to be taken to Parliament, and Parliament shall pass these laws within set timelines.
You know, when we focus on Parliament, we forget that these very same laws also apply to our counties, because part of what this Constitution gave us was this situation where we had a devolved system where counties were also required to ensure that they are governed by bylaws, they are governed by statutes that suit the purposes of those individual counties. So this also has to be looked at, and the progress that has made in that direction.
In the counties themselves.
In the counties.
Yep, yep. So Ekuru is back online. Not yet. Let's sort that out. I think we have some technical issue here as we go on that. Robert, you can deal with that. Counties have an issue.
You see, the debate seems to be only around, say, the Senate and the National Assembly. No. This particular constitution was very, 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 very broad and very wisely and encompassing of issues that we felt need to be dealt with. Devolution was one such thing. The feeling that everything was at that particular point centered in Nairobi, and everything functioned from Nairobi. And it gave the presidency or the president at that time enormous powers. Now, one of the things that it did was it devolved, even powers were devolved. The moment you devolve money, you devolve the access of it, you have actually devolved power. But then what have we seen with that devolution? It also goes back to what we were talking about initially about the readiness. Because the very things that were complained about at the national level are the very things that we have, in the most bizarre sense of the word, seen being replicated in the counties. Bizarre. When I say bizarre, I mean absolutely bizarre. You read, you hear, and you wonder, God Almighty, what on earth are we dealing with here? Yes. So, when we talk about looking back and tracing our 10-year run with the Constitution, it's a good time. It'll tell us very many things, not about the Constitution, but about ourselves. And it may also tell us things that we are not particularly interested in actually getting to look at, but we have to. Because
Maybe truly getting to the crux of the matter is that it might be uncomfortable to hear certain things, but then absolutely necessary to hear if you're actually going to do something about it. Because if it's permanent change or lasting change that you're looking for, then it's coming to grips with the reality as we know it now. That there's certain things that may have been done which the country was not ready for, and that means that there were basics that needed to have been taken care of. And maybe that's where the focus then should lie.
On all these things. Dr. Aukot is now back online. Let's try this out. Dr. Aukot, you can hear us?
Can you hear you, Latif?
Good.
Yeah.
Now
Clear.
it's clear now. Thank you very much
Right.
for joining us, and sorry about that technical hitch. So, Dr. Alcott, we are discussing the Constitution and asking ourselves 10 years down the line, much of the implementation, much of the aspects of the Constitution that needed to be implemented, structures and institutions that needed to come in place have come in place. There are things that have not happened. For example, that whole evasive and elusive issue of the gender balance in the National Assembly has not taken place. But then there are things also that have taken place. And we are pegging our conversation on whether Kenyans were ready to change in terms of our own mindset, to accept the Constitution that we've given to ourselves, and therefore to implement it fully.
Okay.
And that's the same question I want to pose to you, because you sat there, you worked with the committee of experts, you participated in drafting this Constitution, and among the things that it had very many lofty ideals, so to speak. And it was presented to the people. People looked at it and they said, this is the most progressive constitution in the world. This constitution is being studied. I mean, you're a constitutional expert. I'm sure you've given talks about this in other countries and other jurisdictions. But looking back to the people of Kenya, are we living to the ideals that you drafted?
Well, it's a $1 million question, I would say. First of all, let's go back to the journey. At the time we were making the Kenyan Constitution in 2010, actually 2009 to 2010, we had come from a journey of about 20 years. And there was clamor for multi-party democracy in the early 90s. People wanted independence of institutions like the Parliament, the executive, the judiciary. Then they also wanted independent institutions, such as, for example, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, institutions that will address matters land, institutions that will address matters justice. So by the time we were meeting as the committee of experts in 2010, we consolidated all these views. And the understanding at the time was that Kenya was actually in the cusp of renewal. Kenyans wanted a new Kenya, a new governance structure, a new democratic culture. And that is what we consolidated as the committee of experts. So that right from Article 1 to Article 264 of our Constitution, you will see the kind of aspirational change that Kenyans wanted. For example, Kenyans wanted to know, how do we treat power as it has been exercised in the last something plus years? So they said power today must vest in the people of Kenya, and so will sovereign authority. And that you see in Article 1. They wanted to know, how do we treat matters human rights? So Kenyans expanded the Bill of Rights from what it was in the old system, the Lancaster Constitution, to what it is today in the 2010 Constitution. So that now you see an expanded Bill of Rights, which reads from civil and political rights, socio-economic rights, to even group rights. And even in the group rights, it identified specific situations. For example, the rights of the elderly, the rights of the youth, the rights of persons with disability, the rights of women, and all those kind of things. Then we go to matters land. You see that Kenyans were struggling with issues to do with land. And this is a historical situation. Remember, the struggle for the independence of Kenya started with the question of on the question of land. That the Muzungu came to our land and took away some of our best land. And therefore, the Dedan Kimathis, the Mau Mau freedom fighters, decided that, no, we are going to resist this kind of system of governance. So at 2010, we now wanted to fix that question of land. And that's why you can see in Chapter 5 on land and environment, you'll see things to do with how do we manage matters land, public land, private land, community land. Then we go on and on and on. But there's one other aspect that Kenyans really were gearing for. And this is what people elsewhere in the world have said is the genius of Kenya's constitution. The fact that Kenyans wanted a certain type and character of leadership. And this you'll find in Chapter 6 of our Constitution, leadership and integrity. On and on. Matters to do finance, chapter 12? How do we make sure that we check the executive in chapter 8, chapter 9? Devolution. How do we bring equality to the people of Kenya in terms of distribution of resources and development? And that's that you see in chapter 11.
And
chapter 12, how do you use math? So I can go on and on and on. So Kenya was in the task of renewal. But the truth for the matter is this. For you to change any constitution in the world or in any country, you must believe in that constitution in the first place. It must be either the letter of the constitution or the spirit of that constitution. Unfortunately for us in Kenya, the constitution is not the problem. There are two problems. Number one, the people we entrust to enforce or to implement this constitution. That is the leadership question. Because there is no country in the world that will prosper without a certain type of stewardship or leadership going forward. Number two are the people themselves. Are we making the right choices as the people of Kenya? And when we make the right choices or the wrong choices, whichever the case may be, do we have an opportunity to remedy the choices that we have made? For example, why have the people of Kenya not exercised the right or the privilege of impeaching any leader, including the President of the Republic of Kenya, who we all agree is a failed president, is a failed administration?
When you say we agree, Ndugu, when you say we agree, who is included in the we here?
Well, the we, as I said, is the leadership on the one hand, but also the people of Kenya on the other hand. Because this constitution, remember, let's read from the preamble to this constitution. We say, we, the people of Kenya, we Kenyans give ourselves this constitution unto ourselves and to future generations. So we are all complicit. So when we become subservient or silent on how the constitution is being implemented, then we are also to blame. It is not enough, in my view, to keep blaming the current political leadership. Perhaps they don't even know what they are doing.
I completely agree with you here, Dr. Okot, because you're saying that the problem, you're breaking it down into two, the leadership and the people. And I think one is a product of the other. The leadership is a product of the people. And if we, the people, gave ourselves chapter 6 of the Constitution, which, as you've said, is being quoted elsewhere in the world as the most progressive and the genius part of our Constitution, then why do we forget this particular aspect of the Constitution, looking at leadership and integrity of the people who are seeking elective office, and we still put in people of questionable character?
The short answer, Latif, is this. I think we are probably not a very honest society, and let's just fight the bullet. We are very tribal in the way we do things. We are very myopic. We have commercialized our politics. It is, for example, who persuades us with a few hundred Kenya shillings that we will elect into office, only for us to regret going forward. So I guess the short answer is maybe we need to psychoanalyze the people we call Kenyans. Maybe there is something psychic about us. But the long answer is this. We, as a country, and as the leadership of Kenya, need to be able to steer our country to a certain level of prosperity. I keep giving a very tired example, but we have to give this example because it is what it is. In the 1960s, Kenya was equated to the tiger economies of Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, Thailand, and the rest. But they have reached where they are today because of a certain type of leadership that says we want to lead our people to this level of prosperity. Why is that not happening in Kenya? It is not happening because of the two cultures I've described. You have on the one culture, on the one hand, a people who are subservient to certain political narratives. Then on the other hand, you have a very dishonest political leadership. And let me give you a very timely example. Today, everybody agrees. Jubilee is a failed regime, is a failed government.
Once again, Mheshimiwa, when you say everybody agrees, who is this everybody?
Okay, let me correct myself. on a balance of probability.
Thank you.
Okay, I take it back. I don't want to even say that the people in Jubilee agree Jubilee failed. Okay, so generally speaking, and there are exceptions to every general rule, that people think that believe that Jubilee has actually failed, right from its political promises to now disobedience or even court orders under this constitution. Okay? But why is it that we keep on thinking the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, and here I'm now being political, and this is the risk you run in inviting a politician. Almost everybody now thinks the person to beat in 2022 is William Ruto, even under this constitution. Yet, there seems to be a general consensus Jubilee has failed. So again, it goes to the mindset of the people we call Kenyans. What is the problem with us Kenyans? It's time for us to reflect. In this 2020 rather, is the 2010 constitution serving us as it ought to be? When we were writing this constitution, we said, let's create independence of institutions of governance, parliament, judiciary, the executive. Then let's also add to that list independent constitutional commissions. Okay? To address certain aspects, for example, to do with land, human rights, historical injustice, and all that. But the truth of the matter is this. Look at Parliament today. Parliament in Kenya today is either Uhuru Kenyatta or Raila Odinga. Then you actually wonder, did we even have to elect and nominate the 416 members of Parliament? We could have as well just agreed, let Uhuru either become Senate or Raila become National Assembly.
And nominate people to the Assembly.
But Dr. Ekuro, that is simplifying a situation really, really, really by a fast stretch of our imagination. I mean, the truth is this. If you look at anyone who aspires to a political position in this Kenya, do they aspire to actually provide leadership, or do they aspire to acquire as much wealth as they possibly can with the collusion of other people? So it's like you elect people, and the first thing they do is find a way of ganging up so that they can rape the country, pillage the country, and put themselves at the helm of everything. That seems to me the most obvious thing. The lengthy explanations may justify it, but that's what seems to happen. Everyone
totally
wants to make a lot of money quickly.
I totally agree with you. But now that we are talking about the Constitution at 10, do we accept that kind of situation? That's why, for me, I deliberately brought the idea, or what has been prescribed in our Constitution, that Kenyans want a certain type and character of leaders, prescribed in Chapter 6, that if you are a leader, you must not demean the office you hold. You must not disrespect the people. You must adhere yourself to certain value system. So, just because leaders now keep on enriching themselves at the expense of the people, doesn't mean we accept it. And I totally agree with you. The character of our leadership over the years, even from the last 10 years, has been about themselves.
So
nothing to do with Kenya.
Dr. Okot, in the last 10 years, we the people have observed as this is happening with our leadership. We the people seem to have accepted that this is the reality of our times. So should we then amend the Constitution to realign it with this reality?
Absolutely. If you look at any constitution in the world, and you can actually look at a website called constitute.org, you will find about 194 constitutions of all countries. Now, a responsible constitutional builder or maker will ensure that there are mechanisms in the Constitution that will give people the opportunity to review, to correct, or even to rewrite their Constitution. And there is nothing perfect in the world. That's the reality. Nothing is perfect.
True.
In fact, the only document we are not able to review going forward is the Bible. All other documents, people even write new editions of books of Constitution. So, right from Article 255, 256, and 257, it gives Kenyans the opportunity to look at, okay, what we agreed in 2010, is it serving us now? And can we review it?
But is it really, I'm looking at this, Ekuru, and I'm asking myself, is it really an issue of that it is not serving us or that it has actually not been implemented? And then if you talk about an attitude from the leadership and from the people, it seems that if you go ahead and amend it, then you're getting into another situation a couple of years down the road where if it doesn't work, then we might as well amend it again. It looks like you'll be in a permanent condition of amending as opposed to implementing. And we see examples replete all over the world of where it's not working and there's certain actions that people take. Is that the response? Should that be the answer? That if it is not working, amend? As opposed to making sure that what you set out, when everybody agreed that this would be a perfect way to go, that you just didn't do it, as opposed to changing it and hoping that you can now fix it as you go along.
Okay, so you raise a very fundamental question, which is the question around the letter and spirit of the Constitution. But it's also about culture of a people. So when you read any constitution in the world, you should be able to see the people of that country in their social, political, and cultural context. Now, there are options. One, Kenyans need to make the right choices about the kind of leaders they elect to be able to implement the Constitution. Number two, when we are not satisfied with the kind of leadership we have got an opportunity in the Constitution to actually either kick them out or even start a revolution. Yesterday, I'm aware that the people in Mombasa were just demonstrating about the theft of COVID funds. It is a right in the Constitution to demonstrate, to picket, and to do all those things, to exercise your political rights under Article 38 of our Constitution. The police did not have to arrest someone like Auma and the Muri people. This is the right in the Constitution. But Article 104 says if a leader fails you, you must recall that leader. Why have Kenyans not exercised that right that they gave themselves in 2010? Parliament today, like I said, could easily impeach a failed Jubilee regime and a failed Uhuru Kenyatta. Why are they not exercising the right of impeachment prescribed in Article 145, 146? You see? So, yes, we can give ourselves a formula on how we govern ourselves. But it doesn't mean when it's not working, we can't exercise the mechanisms in that Constitution.
It's been said that issues could be that, when you look, you've talked about the spirit of Constitution in any country, and you're also looking at the culture. We look at some countries whereby basic needs have already been met. It's been said that in Kenya, people are actually struggling with other things that should have been provided by said government, that they don't actually have the time, the will, or the wherewithal to start chasing after those whereby they're chasing after how to survive on a daily basis. So where would you draw the balance between the two? Am I going to sit and think about whether a governor ought to be impeached or whether I need to think about a class action so that the president can be impeached, for example? Or am I going to make sure that my family can eat today?
Well, it's a combination of all things. On the one hand, it's not enough for you to give somebody responsibility as a leader.
Right.
And then that leader goes and just lives and does nothing to you. So in the Constitution, you can actually do something about it. And for me, one of the challenges that I want to bring to this discussion going forward in 2020 is that we Kenyans have perfected the art of lamentation. We keep crying. We are bystanders, curious onlookers. We keep on saying, oh, this leadership has failed, this leadership has done this, but we don't offer ourselves. And when then we say we cannot participate in politics because politics is dirty. Let's look at it today. Politics almost decides everything. Okay? It's from political decision that you will see either a homeless child, homeless family on the street. You will see either thieves of public money, prostitutes, the price of unga, the price of flour, the price of beans, and all those kind of things. This is political decision. And let's reflect in 2010. Today, one of the beauties of our constitution is that it has redistributed Kenya's wealth to each and every part of the republic. But is that wealth being utilized optimally to benefit the people of Kenya? And this is why, for me, as a party leader and as Third-Way Alliance Kenya, we have said it is time for us to review our constitution, to even seek some amendments to bring into effect some of the aspirations of the people of Kenya in 2010 in this 2020. We have said, let's strengthen devolution. And by strengthening devolution, we can do a couple of things. Just in summary, why isn't money that is being devolved not going beyond county headquarters? Today, if a member of the county assembly is not in good terms with a governor, the bridge in his ward, the school, the hospital, security in his ward or her ward will not be fixed. That is politicizing the redistribution of resources.
Yeah.
So what we have said, let's now review this constitution and make sure that in every ward of the Republic of Kenya, the 1,450 wards, people are enjoying services at their very doorstep. We have also said,
Dr. Ekot, I hate to really cut you short because this is the time, this is actually the crux of what would have been a perfect conversation on this, on then what we have failed to do and what we need to do going forward. Time is not on our side and we need to take a break on this conversation. But Dr. Okot will have you again, as we've heard before. We'll invite you again to have this conversation on what the Third-Way Alliance is then proposing as a way of addressing what we haven't achieved in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And we'll still have pushback.
Let me say finally this.
Yep.
Kenyans have three choices going forward. Choice number one is to accept the status quo or BBI and their continuity going to 2022, or reconsider amending this constitution to benefit the people of Kenya as PMK Punguza Mizigo Kenya is proposed. Number two, we need to look at theft of public money and how it's devastating the entire country, especially in this COVID-19 context.
Yep.
Because today, COVID-19 has actually made us rethink about many issues. For example, issues to do with health, education, economy, and others. This is where we need to start thinking. And lastly, we need to protect independent constitutional bodies like the Electoral Management Board. We cannot be talking about changing these institutions every election year. It isn't helping.
True. Dr. Okot,
So
thank
for me,
you.
I would
Thank
say
you
to
very
Kenya,
much. Thank you very
We
much.
have those three choices to make going forward. It's up to us. Either to keep on taking pity on ourselves or do something about
Or taking action about it. Asante Sana. Dr. Ekuru Okot is the leader of the Third-Way Alliance political party and also was a secretary and CEO of the Committee of Experts on Constitution Review, the ones that drafted the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We thank you very much. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and on KTN Home. Time to take a quick break because we're coming to the top of the hour. And then in the next hour, we shift gears a little bit and talk about something else. Good morning.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. 24/7 around the world, non-stop.
Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. (102.5) Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, guys, it seems that today is the day we are counting accidents along the roads. What is going on? Another accident on Uhuru Highway this morning, and it's leading you from the Nyayo Stadium roundabouts all the way to Westland. So we already know that there is still some traffic there. We had an accident on Thika Road. We had an accident in Thika. We had another one on the Nakuru Nairobi Highway. And so it's just a little bit crazy, guys. And 3 out of 5 of them have been fatal. We know that there's not much traffic on the roads, but the visibility is extremely low. And now this is contributing to the traffic, so we want to take it easy, don't we? So there's no alternate. If you're already on that road, you're just going to have to wait it out. All right, getting into the CBD coming off of Thika Road is not so bad, but yet again, it's going to slow us down right around the Muthaiga underpass and then again at the Pangani underpass as you head towards the Globe Cinema overpass. Okay, that's what we see. We'll look at it in a bit and see how it may have changed. In the meantime, be careful. Spice FMKE, talk to us where you see that there might be an issue.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
It is 2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning in to Spice FM. It broadcasts on Nairobi on 97.7, in Malindi, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. We are also live streaming the show on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's start the hour with today's proverb. CT.
However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind.
Behind who?
The rest of the body.
All right. However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they'll always remain behind.
Perhaps if they could dislocate from the body, that narrative might change.
So we're asking for any that is coming close to this particular proverb of today's. Isaac Akuku says, he who swallows a whole coconut has complete faith in their backside. I'm not going to use the word that he used, but
yes.
You know what I mean.
I do
Swallow
know
an
what
entire
you mean,
coconut.
because essentially what he's saying is actually in the spirit of African proverbs. They give you a metaphor, they give you a picture in words that paints exactly what they would like you to understand. No mistaking what it is that you're being told.
No, this message is loud and clear.
Yes, it leaves you with minimum, really no doubt whatsoever.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you're given to creating doubt where none exists.
No matter how much
the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind.
They'll always remain behind. Okay. So let's talk about enterprise development in this country, and especially youth empowerment and looking at opportunities. Many have said that Kenya is an innovations hub, especially when it comes to the tech world, right? And they've said, many Kenyans have come out and come up with serious innovations. There was a story, was it in yesterday's paper, was it in today's paper, where somebody has come up with an innovation that is helping to track, there's contact tracing for this COVID-19. There's coming up with ventilators during this COVID-19 era. Many other solutions. When we talk about agriculture, there are people who've come up with solutions for agriculture, people who look at ways of linking the producer and the market in best ways that you can, when you're still in your production shop, this is your farm, you can tell what the prices are in the market. Or If you're in the market, you can tell where there is a glut of production, and then you can go there and get your commodities at a cheaper price. Many have come up with solutions left, right, and center, but there are very many who will also say that one of the biggest challenges they have is access to capital and financing. So you've got this idea, you want to bring this idea to life, then you lack the money. You want to go and approach financial institutions to help you with this, and it's another whole journey. You want to bring in investors, and your own financial literacy of understanding how you can also go and pitch and get investors is wanting. What you're good at is what you've produced, the solution to a certain problem. Now you have your own problem, and you're not able to come up with a solution to that problem. And now therein comes in the other organizations that look at how can we finance such innovators? How can we finance such organizations? How can we help the organization that started? They're doing well, they are showing immense potential, but they're just lacking the capacity to jump to the next stage. How can we help them to accelerate? How can we help them to scale up their operations?
And that's the thing. And one of the things that you see that stands in the way of this, that can be seen as a hurdle, is the issue of capacity, and capacity that is often linked to funding. How then do you make sure that your business can actually get through or take it from that one step to the next? And in a lot of cases, the problem is with funding. There is a startup, there's so many that have come into existence, and the reason why they've not been able to succeed or they've not been able to get a foot in the door is because they don't have the relevant funding that they need to be able to get it. And we talk about these things all the time. We talk about sustainable business in the current world order. We talk about capital intensive business, but it's just not there. When you ask yourself, look at other countries that have been able to provide a conducive or an environment conducive enough for business to be done. There's certain things that they've been able to fulfill in order for that to happen. So you ask yourself here, which one are they going to do? Where's the priority? Are we going to make sure that the country is running before then we start to provide the capital that a lot of these businesses require then to be called sustainable? And in a lot of times, that's the gap. You may have entrepreneurs who are ready to come up with, world-shaking, earth-shattering ideas, but they just can't do it because the necessary funding is not available. And it's a big hurdle for a lot of people.
So when you talk about funding, are we referring to startups? Are we referring to encouraging innovation? Because innovation may not necessarily even be a startup. Innovation may just be an idea someone has, and you want to bring it to the point where now it can actually get money to actually be actualized.
How about all those stages of funding? Somebody with an idea, somebody who would like maybe to go and try it out, they require some sort of support. Somebody then who would like to make it a startup, register it and start operating and trading with that idea, they'd like some support. Somebody would like to then grow and accelerate this business. Others would like to now, at a point where they need to scale, move it from this operation, maybe operating just within Nairobi. You want to take it to 47 counties or 24 counties, or taking it beyond the country. All those require support at some point.
They do, or starting at the very beginning and asking yourself, do we need a structured approach to this where someone can go to receive help if they begin with the idea, where an idea can be structured again, matured to the point where it can actually become a reality?
Yep. Let's talk to somebody who's worked with such people. And this is Ronnie Osumba. We hosted Ronald Osumba a couple of weeks back, and he was here. He's a CEO of iGov Africa, and he kept mentioning what iGov Africa does, which is looking around the country and seeing people who have ideas and people who have started small businesses that are meeting a need. They're providing a solution to a need, and what those companies have done. Then he also is working with an organization called the KCJF, that's the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund. And with the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, they've been able to look at organizations that have ideas and seen how they can support those. And we'll be talking to him about that. Ronald Osumba is a former chairman of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund. With that position alone, you see that this is a man who has sat with youth, and they've come to the government saying, I have an idea, I just want support. And he has gone ahead and saying, there's a need here. There's a way in which I can use a vehicle called iGov Africa to go and meet the people that they are in their villages and ask them, what solutions are you coming up with? How can we help you? Ronald, good morning.
Morning, Latif, and morning, everybody else. And City.
Good morning, Ronald.
Good morning.
It was good to see you guys the other day in the cafeteria. People see you guys going on for 4 hours. We think you are superhumans, but I realized you eat.
Yeah, and other things too.
Ronnie, you're making it sound that it was an earth-shattering realization to realize that we actually eat. Of course we do.
No, sometimes we think your energy running on for 4 hours without needing some of these basic human things.
Right.
Those are very kind thoughts, Ronnie. Thank you.
Karibu.
It's important for us to say, Ronnie, that when you saw us eating, you were also eating. And you were around here at the Standard Group because you were working on a project with the KCJF, which you'll be telling us about shortly. But let's start off from the point of what iGov Africa has been doing and what KCJF has been doing around the country.
Thank you very much, Eric. And I think this is an extremely important topic, particularly if you consider that Kenya today is considered as a hotbed of innovation. But at the same time, we have one of the highest unemployment rates on the continent. So I think it is important for us to be able to ask ourselves a fundamental question. How do we leverage this innovation that we are seeing and this drive to get young people into entrepreneurship to create more jobs? So ideally what iGov does is to work with young entrepreneurs, mostly those who are in the tech space, who are trying to build solutions to address, the various problems that we have. I normally, across the country, when I meet young people, I say the opportunities for entrepreneurship lies in those problems that, you experience literally every day, whether it is in transport, it is in healthcare, it is in education. So those are the opportunities that young people have to build new businesses. And like Siti said earlier, an innovation is not necessarily a startup. It could be pivoting onto an existing problem. You could have been running a business, but now you are seeing a new opportunity that COVID, for example, has presented to you, and you then, innovate your existing business, repurpose your existing business to address that solution. So this is pretty much what iGov does, but we have a specific focus on public social services. So, when you think about healthcare, providing extension services to farmers, when you think education, etc. On the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund end, which is 4-year program funded by the UK government through DFID. It's a £5 million program, or 700 million Kenya shillings equivalent, to finance businesses that are focused on growing innovations that are, how would we put this, that are targeting specific marginalized communities. So that's youth, women, persons living with disabilities, for the purposes of creating jobs. And we focus on, 3 distinct sectors, that is manufacturing, and mostly light manufacturing, because if you consider the target group, this would be huge industries in industrial area, for example, agriculture, and the informal sector. So these are the things that we are working on currently, working with a lot of people across all counties.
Now, you say that the 3 thematic areas are light manufacturing, agriculture, and informal. What is informal?
So informal is your mitumba, for example. Informal is garbage collection. Informal is juakali. So anything that, and you do realize today, the informal sector in Kenya, contributes over 30% to the national GDP. Yeah. It's an extremely critical space that has not been formalized. So there's still a lot of informality around it. Whether you think about structure, you think about regulation, you think about the laws, you think about tax regime, you think about how the business is registered. There's still a lot of informality around it. So it is these people who we are targeting to be able to build their capacity to operate more effectively and more efficiently, improve business processes within this unregulated environment. So that's what informal means.
What do you see are the problems? I mean, it's clear that, we can say that there's this that's available to be able to help. If you're looking at Kenya specific, what do you see are the issues or the problems inherently that dog businesses, whether in a search to be sustainable, or what have you seen are the problems in certain areas that, programs like this then would be able to solve directly through this kind of funding?
I think, Ndu, you mentioned, you touched on one earlier, which is financing. But I think from a generic approach, we need to call them market systems. So market systems are those things that allow businesses to operate in an environment that is predictable, that is regulated, and that allows you to maximize on the resources that you're putting in your business. So a lot of small businesses are operating outside formal market systems. So, when you talk about financing, you do not have properly structured financing that targets small businesses. So that means they have to be interest-friendly, they have to be easily accessible, the repayments have to be what we call bullet repayment. So today, if you go to a bank, every bank wants you to repay monthly. Not most businesses have a consistent monthly revenue cycle. So you want to be able to build a product that allows what we call bullet payments. I pay when I have the resource to pay.
Yep.
So it's flexible to my business. It's friendly to my revenue structure. I can be able to meet the cost of financing my business. So financing is only one bit. Another bit that we rarely talk about that is extremely important, I see government now trying to do a bit of it, is the tax regime. Actually, let me call it the regulatory regime. So the regulatory regime is many things. Is how do I register my business with ease? So do I know, if I want to set up a business, do I know where to go? Do I know what the requirements are? Are those requirements accessible to me? Once I have registered my business, do I have an industry or sector regulator who then can make sure that the playing field is even? So if you think about agriculture, for example, today, most smallholder farmers are left out of the formal structure. And the regulation is largely supportive of big registered farmers. So the small guys end up losing out. Let's take maize, for example. If you're a maize farmer, 67% of our maize, national maize stock, comes from smallholder farmers. And this 67% of the maize stock doesn't make it to the National Cereal Produce Board. These guys have to hustle. So you have then a third segment, created there of cartels who become, like the go-between the small farmers and the regulator.
And the board.
And the board, exactly. You then have, market, let's call it competitive disadvantage for small businesses. So, you have somebody who's selling apparel clothes. And it's in an informal sector. And we know most of our informal clothes are found in places like Komba, Toy Market, and all these other markets across the country, or in small stalls scattered across our urban centers. Now, those guys are already put on a back foot. Why? Because the structure of their market, the competitive structure of the apparel market, is skewed towards the more formal guys. So the Woolworths, the Truworths, and those kind of guys. And so it becomes very difficult for them to compete. And these are the things that then we are trying to address in general, which we're calling market systems. So, to address your question, I think there needs to be a very specific focus to address market systems for small businesses. If you look at the UK and in Europe, they have national government agencies to address what they call small and growing businesses, SGBs. If you look at the US, they have actually set up, and it's, I think, 40 years old now, a national agency to address small businesses. They even have a Small Businesses Act. So they are out of the framework of the Companies Act. They have been created for theirs so that we create, we give them a step up so that we can be able to create a level playing field.
Ronnie, there's something I'd like, forgive me for taking you back.
Yes, it is.
This idea of the informal sector, I'd like you to give me your definition of it again.
So, the word itself suggests what it is. The word itself suggests that there are no set rules of play. There are no set regulations that define how you participate in that particular sector. That's why it's called informal. So, if you look at Matatu sector, for example, today, we are now beginning to try to regulate that space, but it is still largely informal. You can define your own routes.
At what point do we consider it regulated? Ronnie, at what point do we consider it to be regulated?
For the business person, it is regulated if they can predict, how that field plays. So I know that if I put in my registration of business, it will take me 2 weeks to get it back, to get my certificate back. I know that I need to pay 5% tax every year on my revenues. I know that I will be inspected by somebody from the regulator once every month. I know that my customers expect that my product is 10 shillings, not 9.5, not 10.5. That's regulation.
Let me explain why I'm asking this question. If you look at the percentage that of our GDP as is contributed by what we call the informal sector, it's around 33.8%, okay?
Yeah.
Now, but if you look at the employment in this sector, it represents a whooping 83.6%.
Correct.
Now, all these people that we speak of and all these businesses, in one way or the other, will pay taxes. Usually, it is not direct, it is indirect, but it's still taxes. So they do pay their taxes.
Yes.
Secondly, if we then categorize the innovators, people who fall in this category because they don't meet what is the standard definition of formal or informal, then you would argue that there's something even greater. An innovation becomes useful to the innovator when you can get a patent. Is that not so?
Absolutely.
Now, getting a patent, how do you even get a patent in this continent? The body that understands, regulates, and ensures that patents are done, there are two categories. One in Cameroon to the French-speaking African nations, and one in Zimbabwe, Harare, for the English-speaking. Now, tell me, a person who uses this hub of yours to get a patent, how would they benefit from this?
And Ronnie, I'd like you to mull over that question and then come and answer it after this short break. At 24 and a half minutes past 8 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're having a conversation with Ronald Osumba. He is the founder and CEO of iGov Africa, and also working with the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, KCJF. We're talking about innovations and financing innovations, and especially in the area of the youth, and also from the area of the youth to the area of the marginalized communities within that sector of the youth. Shortly, he'll be telling us what they're doing with the KCJF in terms of a show that will be coming up on KTN next week, and he'll tell us about that as he responds to CT's question Good morning. This is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Time for a break. We'll be back shortly.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. .24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's been an uncertain couple of months, and we are still experiencing the effects of COVID-19 pandemic in our lives. However, we're bouncing back. Our resilience like never before has shown even brighter. And in our adaptation to a new normal, we find a purpose to believe in a better tomorrow. Which is why the Standard Group is bringing you the 47 million reasons. It's all about finding something and someone to be hopeful for during this pandemic. From first responders, mental health, unity to hope. We owe it to ourselves to keep going, getting stronger than ever. 47 million reasons, celebrating you and me. You are our reason. And we have 47 million of them. Brought to you by Radio Maisha, Spice FM, Vibes Radio, KTN Home, and BTV.
It's warming up ever so slightly in Nairobi. We're now at 17 degrees, cloudy conditions though. It's overcast through most parts of the city. Visibility actually quite low because of the fog that is surrounding. Let's look further afield into Nakuru, where it is partly cloudy at 15 degrees, likely to warm up ever so slightly there as well, and a chance of rains later on in the afternoon. Then further on, Eldoret. And it looks like partly cloudy conditions as well. The sun will peek out every now and then, but there's a chance of rain later on during the day. Kisumu is partly cloudy at 20 degrees. It's going to warm up till 26. Kakamega as well. Sunny conditions right now at 17. Will warm up to about 25 or so. And then a chance of rains later on in the day. Looking at Mombasa, where it's raining here and there this morning and likely to go on throughout the day and well into the evening as well. It will go to highs of 28 today. It's partly cloudy in Kampala. We will see rains later, currently at 21 degrees. We'll go to a high of 28. And in Dar es Salaam, 26 degrees and cloudy conditions as well. Partly cloudy conditions to follow later, going to a high of 30 today. Johannesburg, we see at 15 degrees, will rise to a high of 19 and come down to lows of 5. Sunny conditions throughout today. And finally, for now in Lagos, it is overcast at 25. We'll go to a high of 28, and those cloudy conditions will continue for most parts of today.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay, so what does it look like?
Traffic.
It looks like traffic now has built up properly in certain parts of the city. We know we've had quite a number of accidents this morning, only hoping that it does not get worse today. Also, again, even out of the NMA, we see that visibility is low. So that has caused quite a number of accidents today and then has caused to the traffic pileup that we see. So coming through to Uhuru Highway from Nyayo Stadium roundabout is still moving very slowly. Coming off of Thika Road, though, will not be too bad. Neither will it be until you get at least to Nyayo Stadium from Mombasa Road. Nothing major going on. Let us know what you do see in case you do see something major. Spice FMKE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us.
Spice
spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
It's 8:30.
done right.
This is Kenya's
94.4 Spice
Broadcasting from
FM.
Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi on Spice FM, and broadcasting around the country as well on KTN Home, and also around the world on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're having a conversation with Ronnie Osumba. He is the CEO of iGov Africa, and he's also the team leader of the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund. And as we went to the break, CT would asked Ronnie to respond to this. And Ronnie, you can just pick it up from here. The issue of patenting and registering a patent around Africa. Ronnie, it's your turn.
Thanks, Eric. So let me just talk. Let me talk to the first thing I think City mentioned, which is taxes,
Yep.
and the fact that a lot of our small businesses are subjected to indirect taxes. And you see, City, this is precisely my point. I think the government is now trying to make that more direct. So they have introduced something they're calling presumptive tax, which you pay at the beginning of the year. I think it's 5%, or maybe it came down with COVID to about 3%. But you pay at the beginning of your year, presuming that you're going to make some revenue. And then at the end of the year, if you didn't make that revenue, the 5% of the presumed revenue, then you get, the cash back or whatever it is, an offset. And it is this unpredictability that we are talking about. You see, corporation tax is clear. I know my corporation tax is 30%. I know I have VAT of 16%, now 14% because of COVID. If there are excise duties that I need to pay, I know they are clear. It's 10% or 5%. It's very clear. So I can be able to, at the beginning of my financial year, predict how much I am going to pay. In the informal sector, now we are trying to introduce this presumptive tax. But before that, it's a lot of what, City, you mentioned, the indirect taxes, which then brings that informality around the tax regime. And now on to your patent concern.
Well, before we go to the patent, if indeed the understanding of the taxation with regards to the informal sector was to, should we say, provide a platform within which this particular part of the economy can actually grow, so you don't burden them with the idea of further taxation, whether you call it formal or whatever it is you call it, because every time part of our indirect taxes rise, for instance, when the price of fuel goes up, automatically the cost of doing business for this sector also goes up. Now, where I was going with my point is this. If you look at a country like, say, Bangladesh, over 80% of their population actually is in what we call the informal economy, all right?
Yeah.
And it functions. Why is it that we must insist on formalizing it when you already have a formula that seems to be working, people are thriving from it, it employs over 80% of our people, and then you want to bring it to a sector that employs less by infringing on them or bringing upon them rules and regulations that apply to this smaller percentage who employ a smaller percentage of people? Does it really make sense?
City, you missed my argument at the beginning when I said we need to create a set of a set of rules that applies to small businesses. So I'm not saying formalize them in the same way you have formalized the big players in the market. I am saying give them some predictability, all right?
All right, so we have an issue with him. We need to call him back and get him back online, and so we can continue. But yeah, he's talking about predictability for
according to
a
whom?
regime.
No, predictability according to whom exactly?
According to the players in the sector.
According to the government, to be precise.
According to the players.
And even with the predictability, there is predictability. Yes, it's just that the predictability is also not formal. I have a problem with this word here, because The word formal and informal is more or less meant to mean something of lesser significance as opposed to another which has greater significance. They are formal. It's just that the structure that we call formal requires you to have certain rules and regulation met, which this particular sector doesn't meet. But it does not mean they are not formal. It doesn't mean they're not formal.
What is formal then? You define. You give us your definition.
One word, regular.
Regular.
Just
what?
regular.
Regular according to
Something,
what is regular?
No,
regular
the word
as in
regular
they
is
wake up in the
something
morning, they
that
go to
you
work.
can
What-
actually see is continuous and is ongoing. That's what I mean by regular. I'm not even trying to... you can't misunderstand the word regular.
but formality as well is are you working within the legal framework that's been set? Are you working
yes,
within
you
the
are.
regulatory framework that is
Yes,
been set?
you are.
And then are you paying your taxes regularly as you should?
Even
because
these
you're
people,
talking about that they pay taxes, yes, but
They
you see, consumption tax is one aspect of it. There's the income tax, which is a bigger percentage of it.
No, they cannot be given, it cannot be presumed that the same burden of tax that is actually levied on those who clearly have businesses that generate more. As I said, they are the number of people who this particular sector represents is large enough for them to be considered differently. And the difference I'm talking about here is by levying yet another tax on them. Remember, these people pay the county or the county.
Yeah.
There's something you pay even on a daily basis.
Yes.
So now, what are you paying for if your business is not recognized to be a business?
Are you paying income tax?
That is
Because
an income
now
tax.
The
Yes.
introduction of the
you have a kiosk.
No.
You are selling by the
Don't define
roadside.
your own things. The introduction
No,
of the
it's not my own
turnover
things.
tax. It is introducing your own things. Okay, Ronnie, help me here.
A fee is a tax. What do you think it is?
It's not income.
Eric, I can see CT is putting you under a lot of pressure. and CT, basically what we are saying is this. Today, you cannot walk into Safaricom and ask the Safaricom guys to pay you 1,000 bob that is not, on a daily basis, that is not part of their tax obligation. But if I walk into Marikiti markets today, if I am a government official, I can collect 1,000 bob from all those guys. Okay? What we are saying is, let us have a structure of collecting tax from them that is predictable to them. So, City, we are not saying charge them corporation tax of 30%. No.
But let them know what's coming, essentially.
Sorry?
Let them know what's coming, essentially, so that then they're able to plan their businesses
Let
around
them know what's coming so they can plan. Today, they can't plan. A lot of the people in informal markets today, CT, they leave all their collections to tax collectors in the market because they don't know. They can't predict that that's going to happen.
Yep.
So all we are saying is, let us have a more structured market system that allows the biggest player in the market, which you've rightfully pointed out, CT, to be able to flourish, but to be able to flourish because they can predict what the market is going to throw at them any single day. So, City, I know you rightfully have pointed them out as the largest employer, and you're saying don't disrupt that. I am saying if you disrupt it, they will play an even bigger role. Because now the system will be more predictable for them.
What I have a problem with this blood-sucking taxation methods that keep coming up. Just when you think that you can breathe, something else rears its head and you're suddenly having to deal with it. And I'm thinking, a sector such as this one, there may be arguments such as the one you're putting forward that this helps them move forward. My argument is because I don't seem to understand how it's going to help. But that's a discussion for another day. Let's talk about patents.
Patents. I like the way you moved it on quickly. Patents is also another, sticky area. And yes, a lot of inventions that are earth-shaking, that are redefining moments or redefining solutions require patents. But a lot of innovations, City, do not require it. Okay? So you have to be able to then distinguish whether the patent will give you a competitive advantage If it will not, then you probably don't need it. So if you take Twiga, for example, who have completely changed the way small businesses are delivering their produce to market. They probably were the first major one, but there are probably others before them. They didn't need to patent their platform. They've probably gotten some IP rights for unique components of the solution, but they can't patent the idea. This is why, and I just heard the advert you read a few minutes ago, Jumbo Pay Market is now doing the same thing, telling small farmers, give me your maize, I will take your maize to the consumer.
Yep.
Okay? So a lot of innovations do not actually require patents unless it's going to give you competitive advantage.
Let's talk about now the program that you've been doing with the KCJF, and it'll be running on KTN Home next week.
Yes, thanks a lot, Eric. I mean, KCJF is an exciting project. It's funded by the UK government, and ideally it is a program that is testing market systems and looking at innovations that can redefine some spaces. So what we're saying is, for every shilling that we invest in specific kind of businesses, how many jobs can we create? This is the test that we are running in the markets today. So we've been running this from last year. Last year was really the test phase, and this year we've gone full blown. So we did the round 2 of applications this year. You'll be interested to know we received 850 applications, exciting applications from at least 44 counties. So innovation is not just happening in Nairobi, it's happening across the country. This, and City, to your point, 850 small businesses, formal businesses, have a combined revenue base of 13.5 billion Kenya shillings annually. And these are small businesses. These are businesses run by, young people. They employ 24,000, again, combined base. They employ 24,000 people, right? 42% of them, only 42% are over 3 years old. The rest, which is 48%, are under 3 years old. So we are seeing a lot of, activity, and this is really a true picture of what's happening in Kenya. So when we talk innovation, it's not just the big boys who we are seeing, the Twigas and the eclectics and all this kind of people. It's the small things that are happening in the counties across the country. And what we are then saying is, how can we be able to support these guys? And we've set up a set of indicators of success. We have set for them what we call the log frame results-based approach. So it's not random. We're not just giving them 100,000 pounds. And by the way, each of them is receiving 100,000 pounds. That's at today's rate about 14.1 million shillings. So we're not just giving them 14 million shillings and telling them, end up finance. No, we are working with them. So part of the support is in cash, and part of the support is in technical assistance, so that they can be able to meet very specific set indicators and results measures. Now, we're not just focusing on the businesses alone. We're also focusing on the markets in which they are operating, so that we are asking ourselves the question, if we pick a business, and I'll just pick an example. If we pick a business like Victorian Foods. Victorian Foods is a fish processing plant, which is based in Turkana, all right? And what they do is they upscale the waste from the fish. So, when the head remains, I know City, this will sound like sacrilege, because in where you come from, the head must not remain. But in other places, but I want you to understand that in other parts of the country, they don't use the head. So they throw it away. It's waste. So they take the head and they take the bones and they convert this into chicken feed, which then they support small-scale poultry farmers in Turkana with. So what they are asking us is to support them to upscale their production plants for the chicken feed that comes out of fish waste. And this is happening in Turkana, in some remote, not even in Lodwar. I can't even remember the name of the place. I think it's called Donganyan, in some remote place in Turkana. So there's a lot of exciting things happening across the country, and these are the things that we want to support, so that we also support the market system, the market environment in which they work. So we engage with the county government, for example, and ask the county government, how do we support these guys?
So
how
Ronnie,
do we make the regulatory environment better for them?
Right. So Ronnie, these companies or these businesses that you're then supporting are Kenyan companies and they are homegrown?
So they're Kenyan companies and they're homegrown, but you will see from, so for example, out of the list of 850, about 40% of them are expatriate-led. Now, I know there has been this conversation. I know the last time I was in the studio, City brought this up, and I promised that with the capacities, with the little capacities I have, we are going to try and fix these things. One of the things the program is also trying to do very proactively is to ensure that we do, some sort of capacity building of locally founded and locally led organizations, so indigenous. However, we do not want to reach a point where we are now doing reverse marginalization of expatriates. So we have put a threshold this year that expatriate-led businesses shall be at least maximum 30% of all the businesses supported. Hopefully, over time, we can be able to build the capacity of indigenous businesses so that they are more competitive, in terms of building their business cases, in terms of pitching to investors, in terms of thinking through end to end, and we can then be able to bring them to the same level where they can compete equally.
This consideration that you have, I like the idea of the fish. It's clearly you're trying to grow intelligent chicken, which is good. Perfect. I like the idea. Feed the head of the fish to the chicks. Good. Now, yes, let me move away from the blue economy and move away in the direction of something that Kenyans are perhaps more familiar with, and that is farming. Yeah. What sort of emphasis and focus are you giving to farming with regards to what you do?
Yes, that's a very good question, Siti. So we have, and like I said earlier, our areas of focus are manufacturing, agriculture, and the informal sector. Let's talk a bit about agriculture. Now, our biggest challenge in Kenya today, even with the big players, is that we sell raw produce. We don't emphasize on value addition, and we don't train our farmers to think through the value chain. So one of the emphasis we have in this program is to see how we can support capacity development for farmers, but also for every other player along the value chain or across the value chain. So yes, the emphasis therefore then is on value chain support. So, but also there's, and you will see from the profile of our participants, there's a lot of also digital play. So how do you make farming smarter? How do you make farming more predictable? How do you make it more efficient? By bringing in technology and bringing in digital. So if you think about one of our participants, Miyonga Fresh. Miyonga Fresh is set up by two young Kenyan girls. And they're doing very well. So what they do is they've developed a mobile fruit processing factory, and they are working with farmers across the country. And they've built a, GPS-based digital traceability platform. But that's not the exciting part. The exciting part is they're working with fruit farmers across the country to say, farmers who have, say, a mango farmer, 30% of the mango fruit goes to waste. So, the fruits that have fallen onto the ground, or when they're packaging, the fruits that have been destroyed, they throw this away. They actually literally throw these things away. So what Miyonga Fresh have done is they have come up with mobile factories. So they have built a factory on a 40-foot container, which they have put on a truck, and have 12 of these trucks, which go around collecting this destroyed fruit from farmers, and they create snacks out of the fruit. So they clean the fruit because they say it's really good fruit. It's just that the face, it's defaced, right? And they clean this fruit, they dry it, and they convert them into snacks.
That's brilliant.
It's amazing that, they initially thought that their market was going to be local, and that's actually how they started. But within 1 year, the demand had spiked in Europe. So today, 80% of their produce, of their product, goes to Europe. And they have created over 200 jobs, through this very simple innovation, but that thinks through the value chain.
In this value chain, where would warehouse receipt systems fit in?
So the warehouse receipting system is extremely important for particularly, I don't know how to call them, but if you look at grain, so some specific categories of produce. So if you look at grain, which requires, I don't know how to call it, which requires regulatory storage, right? Warehouse receipting system becomes a critical play. One, it levels the field between smallholder farmers and large grain farmers. So you give equal footing to the small farmer with his 1 acre of maize in Kitui to the same guy who's running 100 or 200 acres of
But it also enables a farmer to actually access credit.
And now I was coming to that. Most importantly, that receipt is a commodity which can be exchanged for credit in banks. In fact, the law, the Warehouse Receipting System Act, mandates the banks, it is almost legal tender. The bank cannot reject a receipt in exchange for money. And I think this will be a big game changer, particularly for maize farmers.
Indeed. Ronnie Osumba, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us. When is the program supposed to air?
Yeah, so the program is airing on Tuesday next week, which is the 1st of September. It will air at 8 p.m. on KTN, I think KTN everything. KTN Home,
KTN News and KTN Home, yes.
And it's an exciting show. And I want to remind the listeners that this is not your typical business show, where people come, compete. And I know we've watched some on TV where people are given $10,000 in investments in equity. This is more than that. This is a programmatic approach to supporting our businesses so that we can be able to learn the factors that are in play in the market. Yep. We can be able to feed this back into the different authorities, governments, etc., so that we can be able to support the success of all businesses. And each participant, we have 10 finalists who've made it out of the list of 150. We have 5 of them from within Nairobi, but 5 of them are from other parts of the country, Isiolo, Kisii, Homa Bay, Turkana, and such other places, who are going to participate. And each of them will walk away with the top 5. The top 5 will walk away with 14.1 million shillings, which is about 100,000 pounds in grants.
Very brilliant initiative, and we look forward to watching that. Ronnie Osumba is the CEO of iGov Africa, and he's also the team leader of the Kenya Catalytic Jobs Fund, speaking to us about innovation and supporting people who are innovating and coming up with solutions that need to go into market and others that need to be scaled up. Asante sana, Ronnie, for speaking to us. And we also want to thank you for watching us on KTN Home. We'll be taking a break on KTN Home. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. We are discussing Constitution and Constitution making, 10 years of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. In the next hour, if you join us on Spice FM, we will bring back that conversation. So the Constitution created devolution. The Constitution created the Office of Governor and the Office of Deputy Governor. And now we've been having issues. There have been proposals that the Governor and Deputy Governor slot should always have a ticket that is a zebra ticket. If one is male, the other must be female. There have been those proposals. Others are even going forward and saying, look, the county governors themselves, the ones who are sitting now, saying, we are just being paid 700,000 shillings a month and doing nothing. Can we be given more work? Is it about time that we review the constitution and added some of these responsibilities, or do these things just really require implementation of the spirit of the constitution? Thank you very much. So Spice FM is on 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, in Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.7. Our audience on KTN Home, asante sana. See you again tomorrow.
Spice FM, Nyeri.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
All right, so let's remind you about this portal, the Kenya Ports Authority. The Kenya Ports Authority, as you know, of course, it operates the port of Mombasa. It also operates other ports along the coast. It operates the Kisumu port. It operates the inland container depot. And for you to be able to get your goods through the port, you need to understand some of the things that the port does, the Kenya Ports Authority does. So if you can find all this information through an information portal that was created by the KPA, it is on kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, and Captain Cargo is spelled with Kargo. So we've been looking at the various procedures. You know, if you wanted to know how to export goods through the port, how to import goods through the port, also just understanding how a vessel arrives to the port and how a vessel is handled within the port.
Right, so today we'll be looking at that documentation that is necessary for export, and there are quite a number of them. We've gotten to the point whereby then your cargo has been loaded and it's on its way out of the country, and certain position slips that you do need. We're going to keep looking at those and come back and look at the last three that then you would be given, because at this point you already have your export declaration, you've made your payments at KRA, and those receipts and documentation are given to you, which you then present, and other partner agencies then give that to the relevant authority for you to go through. So cargo's loaded and you're on your way basically, and then there is also documentation that needs to be sent to the receiving authorities, and we'll give you those last bits of information today.
And you can find all this information on kpa.co.ke/Captain Kargo. As we come to the top of the hour, let CT Muga remind us of today's proverb.
Yes, however much the buttocks are in a hurry, they always remain behind. It's like a permanent and pensionable position.
So where is this proverb from anyway?
I looked
Who are these people who are thinking?
Let me explain to you something that I've discovered even as I have been searching far and wide for these proverbs. There are proverbs that are considered to be African proverbs in the sense of the word, that there are many African equivalents. All right? So they will tell you it is an African proverb. And you look further and trying to determine, okay, which part of Africa, it very rarely tells you that. So this falls under the category of an African proverb. Though, when I looked at this one, this particular, because it interested me. It had many permeations. There were indications that the whispers of it were first heard in Cameroon. Yes. But it's fallen into the category of an African proverb.
Okay. So it's one of those.
It's one of those.
All right. If you can think of any equivalent in any Kenyan language or even in Swahili, please let us know. Tweet us at SpiceFMKE. Again, this proverb, Amanibu Tukan. No matter...
However much.
Yeah.
Okay, the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind. The buttocks cannot be divorced from the body. Let's start there. Right? So the issue of the buttocks and the movement involves the movement of the body.
Well, and the buttocks having their own mind.
See?
That they'd be in a hurry.
See?
Well, the mind is not.
See?
Or the legs.
For that even to happen, what would the buttocks need to do?
It needs to be engaged by the mind.
Yes. Or it needs to be an independent part of the body.
Yeah.
As if that is possible.
It's a situation room. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so
Traffic.
it's moving quite smoothly on Thika Road. Just before you get to Mathare is where you'll see a hold up, because then now you're connecting with the Muthaiga overpass, the Pangani underpass, and everybody's trying to move out towards the CBD. So then you see a little bit of a clog up, but not too bad, guys. Traffic generally today has not been too terrible. Unfortunately, we had too many accidents today, and one was too many. Coming off Mombasa Road also is not as crazy. Inbound, yesterday we saw quite some traffic. That is because of road works happening, and they continue by KPLC today. So inbound on Mombasa Road, we're going to see a bit of a hold up because of those road works that are continuing and digging up of wires, I don't know, by the Kenya Power. But that will be sorted out without a problem soon, I'm sure. Apart from that, it's looking good. We'll take a look in about half hour or so and see if there will be any clog ups. Be sure to let you know, but safe driving as you approach where you're going. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The
I was
only
just
way.
thinking back about what Ronnie was telling us and some of those examples. When you hear some of these solutions and companies that, like that company that has several trucks carrying 20 food containers or 40 food containers, going collecting mangoes that farmers are thinking, well, this one
Can't do anything.
can do anything. It's not of any use. And then collecting those and
Making
adding
fruit.
value into them and just making the treats.
Lemonade, eh? From lime.
This is it.
You see, there's something about being ripe, the terminology, and being overripe and being rotten. For many people, it's one and the same thing. And oddly enough, even these so-called fresh juices that we speak of, you cannot make them from fruit that are not actually overripe. When they ripe to the point where we call them overripe, that's when they're actually sweet.
It's the sweetest point.
Yes, that's when they are. Now, you may not like to eat them because they're not as fleshy as you may like them to be. But the ingredients, I would argue, are at an optimum.
Is that the point when they have worms?
No, it's the point where the sugar. It's the point where the sugar has been created to its sweetest.
Yes.
To
Then
to that form where
Yes.
it's needed to create
Yes,
its natural sugar.
Now, thereafter is when it starts degenerating. The creature that you mentioned then finds a home at that particular point.
If it's not picked and used at that
Yes,
point.
yes.
So that's when it starts being useful.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not just useful. The uses are varied. It's just that it's understanding what the many uses you can put it to. That's really it. Bless you. Yes. That's what happens when you speak ill of fruits.
That could have helped you.
That could have helped you, boost your immune system. Now you will learn to have kinder words when talking about fruit and their ripened state. But
is this about the worms?
Yes, but the
Just
issue,
because I've mentioned.
no. You know, this, by the way, has been taken to a different level with this idea of a mobile fruit factory, so to call it. But drying fruit, drying vegetables, drying tomatoes, this is an art that has existed in mankind for quite some
For a
time.
very, very long period of
Yes,
time.
yes.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's a question of just making good use of a technology that is understood and available, but taking it to the point where you're now taking it to the people, so to speak.
And if you think about those, just that example and even the other example of converting fish head into chicken feed, this is not somebody who went necessarily to study this. So it also brings you back to the point of, I studied this and therefore I must work in this particular sector. I'm sure if we spoke to those innovators and the founders of those organizations and even those who are managing, they'll not tell you that, I
sure, but I mean,
studied
it must have come from some knowledge base, because I mean, like one of the compounds of chicken meal, for example, is fish bone. It's bone meal from fish.
How do you know that?
Well, I know that because my mother had a poultry, and we knew that we bought.
There you go.
We bought. That's what I'm saying. There must have been some knowledge. It's not just somebody who walked along and thought, okay, well, fish parts, let me just dry them. No, they must have had some idea and said, here is an opportunity for me to take this waste and do something with it.
Believe me, when you're talking about that waste, there are people who've also understood and are practicing this very simple thing. You see, when you fish, there are all these small little lake animals that get caught, which human beings don't consider to be edible, together with some of the smaller fish.
But the birds
omena,
eat.
exactly,
Yeah.
yes, that the birds eat. Now, these also form part of the foundation of chicken feed. Now, people who understood this will build their chicken coop or chicken, whatever you want to call it, on top of their fish pond. So even as the chicken eat, the chicken waste, as the digestive system does its cleansing, it goes back into the pond and it acts
feeds the
as
fish.
it feeds it very well. So that is essentially ensuring that nothing goes to waste, literally.
Nothing goes to waste. Yeah.
Yes.
Good one.
Pun intended.
All right. So bring back the conversation now to our Katiba and our Katiba stories and what we were talking about earlier. So tomorrow we commemorate 10 years since the promulgation of the new constitution.
Eric's mind is in the future, isn't it?
On the 27th. Promulgation of the new constitution. And the discussion that has been there, have we felt the gains of this constitution? One of those major things that the constitution introduced is devolution. And you keep asking this city,
yes,
has devolution worked? When you ask that question, I think overall, in terms of the difference between the time before devolution and the time after devolution, there's a huge difference. You cannot argue with the fact that people have seen money being used, even if 80% of it has been stolen. There's some 20% that has been used to develop some things, some projects here. Something has happened in every county. Every county will talk about seeing a road. Every county will talk about seeing a new dispensary being built, or a new hospital wing being built, or equipment being put up in a new in a health facility. These things will always be mentioned. There are those that will mention various things, but overall, we can all say that, well, you have seen the difference between pre-devolution and post-devolution.
Eric, this is a good morning for you. The sneezing notwithstanding. You've actually gotten the heart of the matter. When you look at what is achieved with what somehow trickles through this interesting web of the things that happen within our counties and mismanagement and their family, and you look at just the phenomenal changes it brings about, and you look at what could be done if this money was actually used for what it was intended, you have no option but to marvel.
Indeed.
You marvel.
And then you ask yourself then, if we can still see companies being set up and those who are in charge of this money allegedly receiving some benefits of up to 73 million shillings, right? Over a 5-year period, you ask yourself, so then, is this what we had in mind? If this is not what we had in mind, then how did we get there? Did we devolve, that whole argument that goes, we devolved not just the functions, but also we devolved theft and corruption. And it's happening all the way down.
Yes, it is.
And there are people who are still arguing that, no, national government was working better because there's
Before
better checks and
devolution.
balances. Before devolution. Arguments for and against. We have seen also deputy governors, for example, coming up recently and saying, devolution is working. We've been elected by the people as deputy governors to assist the governor who's in office. But then, do we have a role? What do we do 8 to 5 on a daily basis. At the end of the month, we are receiving benefit in terms of an emolument from the people of Kenya. Have we really worked to serve the people of Kenya? And what does the Constitution say? You assist.
This is the beauty of this Constitution. Man, it even gives you the ABC of what you should do. And also what you shouldn't do.
What you shouldn't do.
So here, in that realm, there's really very little room for excuses. Or, this didn't happen.
You didn't
know. No. You do know. So if you don't do it, then it's deliberate. Ignorance cannot be used as an excuse if you're looking for excuses, that is.
Let's bring in our guest for the next hour, and this is Dr. Caroline Korogo. She's the Deputy Governor of Nyeri County. She's also the chairperson of the Deputy Governors Forum countrywide. Dr. Korogo, thank you very much for speaking to us, and good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Thank you very much for having me.
Unfortunately, you're there, we're here, so no coffee for us today.
No, too bad today. No coffee for you. Thanks to COVID.
It's COVID. Anyway.
However, I can always send somebody. If you have run out of coffee, do let me know. I can always send some coffee your way. It's an Uber. It's an Uber away. When you get it, you sanitize it and drink it.
City, please.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
This is where we inform you that this very subject of our gratitude knows no bounds.
Thank you very much.
And we've just been talking about innovation. You have just introduced a very interesting aspect of innovation. How coffee can be teletransported. Thank you.
You're right. I think I listened to the very tail end of that conversation about, I think, is it the futures exchange, the commodities exchange, and prospects for our farmers. And I think it's a wonderful conversation. It's still hugely elitist. And I was listening to, is it Osumba?
Yep.
That's his name, right?
Yep.
And I was thinking that conversation needs to be devolved and simplified, so our farmers begin to see the benefits of, commoditizing, their harvest, or even the opportunities that commodities exchange and futures, present to our farmers. It's a complicated conversation. I used to work in the stock exchange for many years, and I can tell you a lot of people don't like to discuss that high finance. So the more we can simplify it, so that it's palatable to the farmers, the better it is. But it's a wonderful initiative. I listen to that.
I guess it can be simplified the same way. I mean, you find when IPOs are announced, people go and buy shares. And they expect returns. And that's all. However it's traded into the back end is not really my concern. Just tell me, how much are these shares going for? 9 bob. And then I'll own Safaricom? Yes, that's it.
That's all they're interested in.
Yes, and sometimes it's not usually a very good conversation because people are told if you buy shares today in an IPO, if you trade 2 days, your shares will triple. Now, what happens is that a lot of people will line up and just with that little knowledge, and they'll not be exposed to the larger dynamics of security trading, and usually the heartaches are quite deep. I know people who went for loans to get into the Safaricom IPO, and they were very disappointed. So anyway, it needs to be simplified, and it needs to also be a very honest conversation that's had, with the farmers.
Yeah. The Doctor of Finance, are you seeing the opportunity for yourself here? Okay, anyway, let's talk about
that should have been the conversation you called me for.
Yes. Let's talk about devolution. And in fact, this also still falls straight into that because this is a law that has been enacted. The national government has come up with a policy. The stakeholders have been involved. Who is it that has direct engagement with the people? And this will also come into the county governments and how county governments can ensure that their farmers, their electorate, because the farmers are in the electorate, are able to use their warehouse receipting system to their benefit.
Right.
So county governments would have to play a huge, huge role in this. But let's talk about now devolution and the Constitution. We'll be celebrating 10 years of our Constitution tomorrow. You're serving your first term as a deputy governor, and your experience so far can also help us to really get into understanding how devolution is working. I asked the question to C.T. Muga, has devolution worked? And he looked down.
I'm curious to hear what he had to say.
He did not answer. He was waiting for you.
Muga is a researcher, and he will tell you 10 years is a good period within which to analyze whatever phenomena you want to analyze. And it's a good time that we're having this conversation of, is it working? Is it not working? Perhaps what is working? What hasn't worked? What has kind of worked? What needs to be tweaked here and there? And I have my own thoughts about a few issues. I heard you discussing whether we think we devolved development or we devolved corruption, and I want to say we devolved a little bit of the two. I want to be very honest. As you know me, I'm an extremely honest person. We devolved a little development, but so did we devolve a little corruption as well. And I am optimistic. I like to say I'm optimistic about devolution because the sentiment it brought to the people, especially those of us who work at the grassroots, is that government is seen to be closer to its people. Whether that is a good or a bad thing, I think the jury is still out. Because sometimes, there's a time my boss would ask me to sit in the office and we listen to, we hear people out. And some of the cases I would listen to are really not cases that a governor, for instance, should be listening to, which then tells us that devolution was not understood, or was understood differently at the grassroots. Because if you fight with your wife and you come to me as a governor, I will ask you, did you visit a police station?
Right.
But they feel the person to listen to this issue is the governor. So we did not understand devolution at the grassroots. So obviously, because you know how things are done, it will take a political turn. We went bananas and oranges, nakama baba amesoma, pia sisi tumesoma. So we have a lot of confusion at the grassroots level, which is expected, I think, in the first phase of any I want to call this 10 years perhaps more of a trial period. So I think it's a good time for us to have the conversation of what's working and what's not working. And you have seen me as chair of deputy governors bringing to fore a conversation of what's not working in the offices of governors and deputy governors. And we are saying that the relationship, as was expected in the spirit of devolution, to work between bosses and their deputies is not working for political reasons. And perhaps it's about time to fix it, especially because of the looming constitutional amendments. So we're making a strong bid to say that deputy governors' roles should and functions should be enshrined in the Constitution so that we have a more structured environment. There is this whole conversation going on of, are deputy governors idle? And I want to say there are some extremely busy deputy governors, and it is because they have been empowered by their bosses. We have some who have not been empowered by their bosses, but have found a niche, have found an agenda of their own, are sourcing their own funding and are carrying on an agenda. We have some who actually, just pretty much, disappeared from the scene. And it's also with instructions from their bosses. You're not allowed to be seen. You're not allowed to have activations on the ground. So we are saying to have a more uniform and structured environment, it's very important and imperative to have the conversation of, the functions of deputy governors being enshrined and prescribed in the Constitution. So it's not about what relationship you enjoy, because you must appreciate the fact that you're not able to legislate relationships. You cannot put in the Constitution whether a relationship is going to work or not, and perhaps what that means. If I go to the governor's office every morning and say hello, does that mean that the relationship is working? And what does that mean to Wanjiku? Is it of any benefit, to Wanjiku? And I like to say relationships are personal. Whether you choose to relate well with your boss or not, it's really a personal thing. What is important is what you're delivering to Wanjiku, especially in the public offices, Eric.
Dr. Karugu, what needs to... obviously we know that if the duties would change, or if the duties then would have a greater burden of responsibility, then this is something that needs to change at constitutional level, right?
Right.
How far then would it need to go to make these kind of changes? What needs to happen, despite, regardless of the agitation? What needs to happen? I would see then an acceptance also from the point of view of governors themselves, realization of the status quo then before that leads to action needs to take place.
Yes, absolutely, Ndu, and good morning.
Good morning.
What we feel extremely lucky about with our proposal is, one, it has been accepted by the Haji team as a plausible proposal. Two, it is in line with the Ugatuzi initiative. If you went through the documents that the governors had come up with before the BBI took shape, they had come up with a document called the Ugatuzi initiative, within which they actually accepted that there is no uniformity in how they engage their deputy governors across board. And they said there's a need for defined roles. So we are aligned, and I do not see at any point, governors fighting that, because they are aligned, especially in the Ugatuzi initiative, to the fact that we need a uniform engagement of deputy governors. Of course, they had discussed other issues, which we also put in our memorandum, some things like, the removal process of a deputy governor. That had been left out in the Constitution, whether by design or default, and was causing a lot of confusion. So, what is the process of removing a deputy governor from office? You will see in the Constitution, Article 179 is actually, Article 180, is actually silent. And we've been able to do this through an amendment of the County Government Act. And now it is clear that the removal process of a deputy is similar to the removal process of a governor. So we're tweaking, we're trying to change, we're trying to better the Constitution so that it serves everybody. And I like to say this, Kenyans like to take a national conversation and start personalizing it and politicizing it. This is not a political discussion. This is not a personal discussion. This has no, we don't want to go into offices, individual offices and individual counties. We want to say, from a global view or from a national view, this is not working. And we understand it's not working because these are political offices which are exposed to a political environment. And the time is now to fix it, especially using the BBI. So we are aligned to our bosses, and we are aligned to the general sentiment. There could be a little politics coming in from here and there, but it's really myopia. I do not see a reason why this should not pass through the BBI. But in the event that it doesn't, our plan B is actually to lobby the National Assembly and try and change Article 32, Section 32 of the County Government Act, and where it says that a governor may assign a portfolio. And all we will do is lobby to ensure that may changes into a shall, that it reads that the governor shall assign a portfolio to his or her deputy.
Daktari, thank you.
Yes.
Let me ask, there are actually three questions I want to ask you, so I'll begin with the first one.
Yes.
The first one is this. I have liked your approach to this matter and the consistency and the energy you've brought into the discussion. But let me ask, are we having this discussion because you're a deputy, and would you have the same discussion if you're the governor?
Can I answer? Absolutely, yes. In fact, I was arguing. Yesterday. I was in yet another channel, and I was saying this is not something that we are doing as deputy governors, thinking that we'll be deputy governors for life. This is for posterity. It is an issue we have seen will continue ailing these counties, from now until kingdom come. If I was governor, I would want a very useful deputy governor. In fact, I would make sure that my deputy governor is so empowered to run with the county so that I free my time to run with the politics. That doesn't quite happen, in that sense today, Muga. So it's a conversation I would happily embrace, whether I am governor or deputy governor, to ensure that everybody is contributing to my vision if I was governor, or to the will of the people and the reason why you're sworn into office. Muga, when we are sworn into office, we swear to serve the people. We do not swear to serve an individual, you know. So it's important that if you're sworn into office to serve your people, you're seen to be, not even seen to be serving, you actually have, you can have a scorecard and say, while I was in office, I served under this docket, and these are the things I was able to do with your exchequer money out of my own effort. These are the things I was able to lobby. This is the money I went and lobbied from, you know, development partners, and I came to this county and did A, B, C, and D. But that can only be done if you have a portfolio. So it's a conversation I would have even if I was Governor Muga.
All right, let us take a walk into the deep blue sea. If you were governor, what would you put in place to ensure that there is a clear meeting of what the Mwananchi in your county expects devolution to do for them, and what would you need to put in place to bridge it in terms of resources, monetary, of course, in terms of education? Let's stop there before I move on to the next part of it, which will be the last one.
Thank you. Muga, there is a document in counties called a CIDP. Now, in many, and I want to be very frank about this. I think, you know, one of these days, my honesty will land me into a lot of trouble. And if, I hope at Spice you will have a place for me to come and continue talking.
We already have a place.
Thank you. This document is a document very many people do not read. It is just that. It's a CIDP, a county plan, strategic plan, so to speak. And it's a requirement for every county to have a CIDP upon which they draw the annual plans, the annual development plans. Now, if you look at how some of these CIDPs were done, it was really to tick a box. If you hold many of those people working in those counties and, you know, randomly ask them, what are the 5 objectives in your CIDP? They have no idea. Why? We ticked a box of a document that is very pretty. It's like strategic plans for many companies.
Yep.
So, you know, when I was in corporate Kenya, you know, there are beautiful documents sitting somewhere. And if you ask, they'll say, yes, we have a strategic plan. It's even on the website. And, you know, really nobody is living it day in, day out. So, yes, there is a plan. And if, for instance, I was governor, that would be, you know, my Bible, so that every little thing, including the work plans of the very junior people, are carved out or are drawing into the strategic plan or where we want to go in the next 5 years. So that then we don't have this issue of, you know, sort of shooting in the dark kind of strategies where, you know, every year you sit, you discuss and change direction. This year we are concentrating on health. Next year, no, let's do roads. People are complaining about roads, you know. So there's a more structured and more deliberate way to solve people's problems. I think it's to bring to life the strategic plans of counties. And that would, to answer you, Muga, would be my to-go-to document.
Yes, indeed it would. And now to my last, I was thinking of raising a question, but let me make a statement, if I may. You know, we asked the question at the very beginning, well, have we devolved? But the question we were asking earlier on, were we ready for devolution? A lot of the, should we say, the disappointments that we have faced has had to do with our expectations. That's why I asked the question you've just answered. But in terms of devolution being positive, nothing more positive could have happened to this country. For this very reason. Everything that we've seen, good or bad, horrible or wonderful, among the things it has done, it has shown us who we've actually devolved our nature to the point where we can understand it ourselves. Right. When you had everything centered in Nairobi, everything could be blamed on Nairobi. But now it is, you have your government in your backyard. And these are your people. You don't bring them from anywhere else. They're your people. So if we wanted to do an analysis to understand ourselves, devolution has made us understand ourselves better than we could have. Anything that brings out the worst in you does precisely that. Forget the best. That one is easy to understand. When something brings out things that you dislike and abhor and you'd rather not have, then it does wonderful things for you. Now the question is, what do you do with this information that has been provided for you?
Right. You're right. You're right, Muga. I think different people have done different things with that information.
Dr. You're clearly a politician. Clearly. But carry on. Different people have done different things with this information.
With that information, I have just given you a story of what we have seen in the grassroots with regards to matters understanding devolution. In the grassroots, they understand devolution as, a governor is sort of like a chief, a senior chief. So you take all your problems, including those that are very personal to the governor. So you sit, and as a governor, you have to listen.
Yep.
Like you say, Muga, you are elected by the people, you are theirs, they consider you theirs, and therefore you must give them time. Now, the question that comes to mind, even as all these things are coming about, is then, are we using governors the way we should? Because a governor is by and large supposed to be a vision bearer, is supposed to be a CEO. But what we are seeing with devolution and the fact that katiba tulisomewa na tukaambiwa is bananas and oranges, is that we did not understand that this is someone who you need to let free, to look at the vision of the county, to look at the strengths of the county, to look for partners who can help unlock some of these strengths, because exchequer money alone cannot make any transformational changes in the counties. And when I see this whole hula baloo and ping pong about revenue, the revenue sharing formula, I want to ask, can I see the counties that have gone out of what is coming from the exchequer and said, out of my own effort, as for instance, governor, I will engage partners to further my vision for the county? Or is my vision for the county 100% bankrolled by the exchequer? Because a CEO should be able to bring partners on board. A CEO should be able to sell a vision to people who plug into the vision as investors. Now, we don't see this going on in counties, Muga. So, like I said, it means different things to different people, both at the leadership level and even at the grassroots level as Mwananchi. Devolution means different things, which is also 100% understood because this is phase one of devolution. So this confusion, I think was expected even by the committee of experts that put the documents together. Say maybe 10, 15 years, and I used to hear that a lot when the new constitution was promulgated. Now, the first 10, 15 years, you will see even the caliber of governors will be, people would still be grappling with what caliber of governor. But 15 years down the line, we should be able to see the electorate themselves saying, this is the caliber of person we want as government. So I want to believe, like I say, I'm an optimist. We are still in the trial phase.
We're still in the trial phase. So let's take a break. Let's take a break, Dr. Karuga. And when you come back now, we will actually now ask the question whether then we should allow ourselves to fully learn from the lessons that we are seeing of this constitution, or we should assume that we are learning and start changing before we even completely learn what we are seeing. So even all those proposals that you have, amending the constitution so that we give more powers to the deputy governor, maybe this can happen. And actually you're saying it's also possible that this can happen by just amending the County Government Act. Why then do we need to have a conversation about amending the constitution if we are told ourselves that we are going to have about 10, 15 years of just learning and internalizing and getting to understand that a governor is not a chief, but a governor is a chief executive. Let's take a break at 26 minutes to 10 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Speaking with the Nyeri Deputy Governor, Dr. Caroline Karogo. She is also the chairperson of the National Deputy Governors Forum. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. The
All right,
weather.
17 degrees Nairobi, partly cloudy conditions now, shedding that overcast situation from before. There's a chance of a sprinkle later, but we'll have to wait and see. Nakuru is now sunny at 17. We'll climb up to a high of 26 today, and also showers expected later. Take a look into Eldoret, where it is partly cloudy, mostly sunny conditions at the moment at 17, and will rise to a high of 25, and there will be some cloud cover later. And in Kisumu, it is 22 degrees and partly cloudy. It'll continue this way, and then sunny conditions open up into the afternoon. Kakamega is sunny at 20, going to a high of 26, and we will see going into Kampala at 21 degrees now, partly cloudy conditions. We'll go to a high of 28, and in Dar es Salaam, 26 and partly cloudy. There's a chance of showers later, going to a high then of 29. In Johannesburg, going to a high of 17 today, currently at 14, coming down to a low of 5. It's sunny conditions. And in Lagos, overcast at 26, going to a high of 29. Take a last look into Europe, where 17 degrees, it's partly cloudy conditions in London. We'll continue this way for most of the day, and it's going to be a sprinkly, wet day in Paris from what we see. Highs of 19. And coming around about to 2 a.m. in New York this Wednesday, we will see showers as well, going to a high of 32. What does it look like now? A little bit better. Traffic in most parts of the city has dissipated. We don't have much drama. Outskirts, though, of the city still building up. Inbound on Mombasa Road does look good. We don't have that problem, but we know that the road works by KPLC continue on that part. It's moving very well on Thika Road. Don't have much problems. I think people have behaved after the early morning accidents that we saw. Nope. So it looks good, guys. Unless something does shout out, let us know. Spice FM KE. But for now, I think you've either gotten where you're going or you won't have much trouble doing so.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
And the conversation continues right here on Spice FM. We are speaking with Dr. Caroline Karugo. She is the Nyeri Deputy Governor. She's also the chairperson of the National Deputy Governors Forum. We're looking at the Constitution of Kenya and the devolution and some of the aspects of the devolution. And Dr. Karugo has just given us that example and telling us, well, the understanding of devolution and the expectations of devolution varies with every different person. And maybe the last 10 years have been that. It's a learning experience. It's a time for us to start internalizing, not to experiment, but to experience devolution, to experience the governance at the devolved level. And then at some point we'll get to understand it. So just going back to what CT had said earlier, maybe we said yes to some ideal, but we did not know exactly what this
What did we
ideal.
actually say yes to?
Yeah, we didn't know exactly what this thing would.
We knew we wanted change, but when it was brought to us in this form, and then we stuck to what human beings do.
So is that a failure on the part of the people for then not?
No,
Let me finish the question.
No.
Is that a failure on the part of the people for not ingesting this information as it had been presented, or is it a failure on the part of those then who were to interpret it for those who then were going to ingest it to understand?
None of the above. For this reason, what you're saying is actually how one ought to look at it, but start from the basics. Human beings do not like change. We like conformity. If you look at the history of mankind everywhere, whether it's religious, social, political, anyone who has ever introduced change will be vilified. The people who got jailed in this country for fighting for independence, fighting for land, the outcome of their lives are clear. Many people died, some were imprisoned. That's why you have the Kapenguria 6. Whenever a new idea is introduced, even in religion, think of the religious leaders that you can think of, any. Change. The one thing they have in common is they are introducing change. They are fighting against a norm of conformity that human beings like. So what you're saying is at a secondary level where people have accepted that there will be change, and change that is beyond what they anticipate or expect. That very rarely happens. It only happens in a discussion like the one we're having.
I also see another angle here where people will always understand different things at any given time. Sit down and you're teaching one class, Mwalimu, and not all students are understanding 1 + 1 = 2 in the same way that the next person has understood it.
It is true,
They're
but
all
at some
looking at
point
it.
they'll arrive at some commonality, and that commonality for students, you have to pass an exam. So it is important for you to summon your mind and your thinking capacities to understand it in the way it's expected. Now, when you're talking about a population like that in a county, and with the variety that you've actually presented, it does become an interesting point of perspective. But the one thing, again, they have in common is anything that makes their lives better. Now, once it is clear, then the point that Ndu mentioned now comes into force and it's applicable.
So the result is what will point you to. It becomes like your true north.
Yes.
So you'll never be ready for change then?
Until?
No, we very rarely are ready for change.
They'll never be ready for change. So it just looks like all of this just continues to be... it's continuous exercise for something that people will not be ready for.
No. It isn't that. That's an extreme form of looking at what I'm saying. I am saying this, that change is something that people don't welcome. It doesn't mean they will not be able to change. No. But there has to be reason that they can understand and accept for them to change. And that's why I said that the points that you mentioned come into being when that has happened. Before that, you'll be dealing with the issue of conformity. So there'll be no change really.
So what is it that then needs to happen? Let's say at the devolved units, what is it that needs to happen so that people can have a common understanding of their expectations of their county government? So for instance, those that go to Dr. Karugu and they say, Daktari, yesterday I wanted to do ABCD, and they're speaking because they have voted for a deputy governor and they're dealing with the deputy governor that they elected, bringing their own personal problems. Those that sit back and they say, we have a hospital here that we expect that you can do something to improve the facilities in this hospital. See, those are different expectations.
But I would ask Dr. Karugu of the people who come to the governor or the deputy with problems, what percentage are personal, what are developmental, what are societal? Because I'm sure they know this. There is a clear indication of that diversity, yes, but there are things people will agree on. If you're talking about, say, provision of water, people are not going to disagree on that one. If you're talking about a good road network, people are not going to disagree on that one. If you're talking about
health facilities,
people are not really going to disagree on that one. Now, if there is a promise, and this is what politicians do, they promise, and there's a fulfillment of the promises, then these are the changes that we're talking about become more feasible. But if the promises of yesteryears are not fulfilled, how do you then deal with these are the new promises which are being brought, and yet you have a pending list of things that haven't been done?
So, Dr. Karugu, of the people who you've sat with and they've come with their own with the issues that they'd like the governor's office to address, how many are bringing personal issues, and what percentage are actually bringing developmental issues?
I stopped that initiative myself. After I conducted a research, I had seen 686 people, out of which 514 were what I considered personal issues. Either they will come and ask for unga, or they will come and give you some gossip, and they want you to give them some fare back home. Or they will come and tell you about their land that they are fighting with their brothers, and one a hand was cut off last week. So there were really personal problems, so to speak, which then informs my my hypothesis that devolution was understood differently, especially at the grassroots level, because then you have to redirect these people. Go to the chief, you go to the what you need to do is go to the police post near you and report that incident. But, and it takes on a lot of your time, with time which you are supposed to have been engaging strategically or looking for strategic issues that are to benefit your county. And, I agree with Muga when he says, that people will be hesitant, about change. It doesn't mean that eventually they will not change. They will, but the number one, the defense mechanism is no. That change is not good. It's not good for us, and we will see it. I mean, we are now talking BBI. Number one, the first thing that will happen with BBI, if you haven't already seen it happening, is that it's going to take a political dimension. The minute it takes a political dimension, so BBI is about so and so and so and so, and not about so and so. So those ones who are aligned to so and so will not, even if it is a good document, will say, no, this document, we see there are some sinister motives, in it. So that lays the foundation of the confusion, and that confusion now is devolved from a national platform or from these personalities who usually will be national figures to now the person in Gangarivi in Nyeri, because they will ask, I am inclined to personality A and not personality B. Personality A says that BBI is good. Personality B says that BBI is bad. So we will see that continuing.
But then,
yes,
it comes to the issue, back to a similar issue to what you were raising earlier when you were talking about the commodity warehousing.
Yes,
it's about the understanding, and then whose responsibility is it to ensure that there is deeper and better understanding of civic awareness, civic education? When you're sitting as a county executive and expecting people to come and hoping that they have understood what they should be bringing to you, do you feel a responsibility as the executive to actually shape the conversation and take that conversation to the people so that then they are responding to what you've already owned as their conversation?
Right. If you leave it to politicians, it will go how it has gone. And I think we have a good case study already. I think that civil society needs to pull up its socks. I think you, as members of the Fourth Estate, need to also be non-partisan and also be able to bring out these issues as they are. But if you leave it to us politicians, and let me just put myself in the lot, because I cannot remove myself.
You can't. No.
I can't, unfortunately. We will not have honest conversations. we will certainly, move it towards our political inclinations and what the future looks like, and trying to play safe with different sides. But I think there needs to be a serious conversation around civil society, around the Fourth Estate, where then you bring out these issues and help drive conversation and sentiment towards the right direction. The truth is, it's been left historically to politicians, and politicians will clamor for that space.
Yeah.
And if you then leave it for politicians, I think we already know the writing is on the wall. It's going to go the direction it has gone, and then we'll come back and complain that Wanjiku did not understand, and we are the ones who misled the same Wanjiku. So the onus is upon you and upon civil society to take the lead in this conversation.
Dr. Karuga, the vast majority of the people you spoke to, according to the survey you did, had personal problems.
Yes.
Did it not also tell you that these people actually did have personal issues, and which leads the question of how is it then that so many people, even as a sample size of the population of your county, how is it that so many people voice their problem as being personal? What does it tell you about the larger picture of what they expect the government to do for them? Because people will present to you what they think you can solve for them, not the bigger problems.
It's
that
the expectation.
Yes.
The expectation of government is that government will sort out this person who chopped off my arm.
Yes. Yes. You ask about a problem that someone has, that's a problem that they have.
Yeah. That is their pain point.
That's their pain point. So,
yes.
In fact, the information you got was very, very useful.
Yes. I agree with you, Muga. It pointed me in two ways. One, that there was new hope. There was realization of new hope with the coming in of the county governments and the governors, that now this person, at least in one desk, all my issues can be solved, whether it's the issues of the butterflies in my shamba and the beetles eating my potatoes, or it is the issue of my latrine that collapsed, or it is the issue of the husband that is beating me. I have a one-stop shop for all my personal problems. But it also spoke about a failed sort of national administrative process.
Yep.
Because you would tell them, why don't you go and report to the police station?
Broken
and they say
trust.
no. But in the police station, they laugh at you. If you go as a woman in the police station, they tell you even you're supposed to have been beaten more, you are not beaten enough. So it also spoke to me about the fact that they have not received the services that they are supposed to be receiving from the already established structures or the already established entities that are supposed to be giving.
Right, because if those structures were working, if they could go to school, for example, and be able to get assistance, if they could go to the police station and get the help that they needed, if they could go to hospital and have a proper, mechanism in place whereby they could access healthcare without having to pay an arm and a leg, the chances of them coming to a governor's office to make this complaint then would be very slim to none.
I also want to push it to the government, the county government itself. If the county government had put up proper social structures that would be able to help these people, they'd be going to those particular social offices. If the county government, for example, had ensured that the ward representative's office is working well, they'd be going there. Or the ward administrator. Why would someone not feel that they even know whether there's a ward administrator, they want to go to Dr. Karogo's office, who's the deputy governor?
First of all, Eric, social services by and large is not a devolved function. Even what was the functions that were devolved and those that were not devolved, those that were semi-devolved and those that were not really completely devolved, is still a gray area to Wanjiku at the grassroots. They do not know what was devolved and what was not devolved. To them, everything was devolved.
Yeah.
So we had, for instance, this conversation. Last week we had the Youth Week, and the youth are blaming county government. Why don't you come up? Why don't you have a budget to come and help us? And you have to tell them the youth function is still not devolved. It's still at the national level. If we, for instance, put money aside for any youth function, the Auditor General will come at us. So even what was truly devolved is not 100% conceptualized by Wanjiku. And we also have another issue of even what was devolved. Perhaps the functions were devolved. The finances did not follow.
Yeah.
So there is also a little bit of an issue right there, as where county governments are saying, yes, you devolved this function. So agriculture is devolved, but even the assets are remaining with national government. All the money is still going back to national government. So what do you mean that agriculture is devolved? And these 10 years have brought out a lot of those issues. But Wanjiku, frankly, doesn't know, and even if they know, they don't care. For them, the government is closer to them. They will bring all the issues to you, and it is up to you to now direct them to the right, to the right offices. That's why I say I think, in my view, devolution has worked in the sense that people feel that government is now closer to them. Whether or not that government is assisting their A to Z problems is a different question. But we feel like every day, if I wake up, I'm from Nyeri, that I'm now closer to my government. Yes, they feel that they're closer to their government.
But does this not also mean that they know very, very well that it's not as though they don't have other places to go to, as you've said, and that they should also come to you? It is a vote of confidence in the government of the county. Remember, from a personal perspective, if somebody can bring you their personal problem, what are they telling you?
That you're that close to my heart.
Yes. Or that I'd like you to be that close to my pocket.
Yeah, and whichever way, whichever way, yes.
Yes.
So is that a vote of confidence on the?
It is a vote of confidence, because if you are seeing
a vote of confidence on the government or the vote of confidence in the personalities
No.
leading the government.
What I see is that the personalities and the individuals are telling us how they view you. But that, and they're also telling us who they are, because how they respond to you is also a declaration of who they are. But of significance, that they can come to you means they have not ignored you. Because the alternative is they don't bother coming to you at all. They never come to you at all. It's like when someone tells you they will not take their problem to the police, they're not going to bother. They will not go to the chief. They will not bother. Simply because their lived experience is that amounts to what they would consider a waste of time. Yes.
Right.
Now, that is information that makes it possible for you to plan and see how best you can actually ensure that your people not only understand, but understand fully what the government of the county can and cannot do.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
But
as
even as we think of trying to explain what the government can and cannot do, what we have found ourselves doing is actually walking into those police stations with these people. Saying, let's meet up, come to my office on Wednesday. Let me take you to that police station.
Yeah.
Let them say to you what they say to you in my presence, and that is sometimes that is what occupies a lot of time for the county executives and for the county governors, just trying to sort out things that they are ordinarily not supposed to be sorting out. But these people are feeling, you are our hope, we put you in office, so help us, help us clear out some of these issues. And by the way, when you take them to those police stations, when you take them to those chiefs, they get a totally different, reception.
Of course.
Of course, they've been taken by Mweshimiwa. That will happen.
Yes,
As we conclude this conversation, Dr. Carol, is there proper justification to discuss amending the Constitution after 10 years?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. A resounding yes for me. It's like I said, it's 10 years in. That's enough time for all of us to see what has worked, what has not worked. And it's about time to now bring to fore the conversations that we are currently hearing, conversations, gender, for instance, conversations, deputy governor, conversations, inclusivity, conversations, especially resources and ring fencing resources for what is truly important, to Wanjiku. I think we have had a good time to, an enough time, not even a good time, but an enough time to understand what is working. And there is no better time than now to try and change what is not, or amend what is not working. Because I think I'm still a believer, like Muga Devolution was a fantastic idea. We still have a very good document for a constitution. But for the places that is not prescriptive, for instance, the issues of deputy governors, for the places that it's not prescriptive, for instance, the issue of the 2/3 gender rule, we need to make it more prescriptive so that we do not leave these conversations to individuals who are exposed to political environments and political innuendos to then drive an important function, for instance, gender parity or the roles of deputy governors.
Okay.
So it's a good time for us to be having this discussion. And yes, we need to amend what is not working. The earlier we do it, the better, so we don't continue also, for instance, wasting funds on functions that are not working, or, we don't continue working, because I don't think we are working optimally with Constitution as it is now. A lot more, can be done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Caroline Karugo, Nyeri Deputy Governor, Chair of the National Deputy Governors Forum. We'll host you again soon, and we expect our coffee. You know the address.
Thank you very much. You will enjoy your Dead and Climatic.
Thank you.
Anytime now.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Let's remind you of the KPA portal, kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. We're looking at the documentation that you need.
Right, so documentation that you need for export. So we're at the tail end of things now, and you get what your port charges would be, and this is a pre-advice slip that you get from KRA. Then you're issued with a position slip, and your position slip basically means that you've been cleared of all your and everything that you need to do as your cargo now is leaving. So your truck comes in, picks up the stuff after it's gone through a scan, and then you get your cargo offloaded and onto the vessel, and it's loaded onto the ship, and the ship sails from the port. All of this made possible because you have your documentation for export, and it's all hunky-dory.
Oh, brilliant. kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. Coming to the end of the show, today's proverb. CT Muga.
However much the buttocks are in a hurry, they will always remain behind. There are certain things you cannot divorce yourself from. Much as you may not like the pace at which they move, much as you may prefer to take a different path, unfortunately, you have to come to a consensus and move with this particular body that you form part of.
Okay.
Again, extend the meaning as broadly as you see fit.
You elected that governor, you're stuck with it.
Yep.
You made your bed?
Lie in it.
Lie in it.
Yes.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room. Join us again tomorrow. We'll be speaking to Professor PLO Lumumba. We'll be speaking to Martha Karua and others as we commemorate 10 years of the Constitution. Say goodbye, Indu.
Goodbye. Have a good day. We'll talk
Lovely.
again tomorrow.
Okay. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.